All right, so I have to share.
You're sharing your whole screen.
I know, because I'm an idiot. I was playing the music earlier. I was playing the music earlier. Oh my God.
We are professionals here.
We are pro.
The music's not coming through, so I'm just going to sing.
Should be music, but
Yeah. Are we ready?
if there's no music coming through, we will start now. Here we go. Take this off. I'll get this, guys. Like that, right? Hey.
This is the first time doing this one.
This is the first time Exiled has done this. So I'm Exiled, everybody. I'm here with Holy Spackle. She's helping me figure this all out.
Hey.
And tonight we're here to correct the record because Steve McRae has decided to do a show, a quote unquote show about various people that are not as smart as him and not as compassionate as him. And Randolf Richardson was targeted, and he was the focus of Steve McRae's show called The Cesspool, where Steve acts like he's better and smarter than people who are better and smarter than Steve is. Randolf Richardson is president of Canadian Atheists. We're going to bring him on now. We're going to bring everybody on. How do I do this? Add everybody to the stream. Everybody is coming on. And that is going to be removed. How's that? Can everybody hear?
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody in the live chat. I would like to introduce Randolf Richardson. He's president of Canadian Atheists. As I've said, Canadian Atheists advocates for the normalization of atheism and cares about rights, freedoms, and the general well-being of atheists in Canada. Randolph, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll go around and everybody can do the same.
Oh, thank you. I think you've covered most of it. I am a Canadian who founded the Canadian Atheists a number of years ago to advocate for atheists. Normalizing atheism is important to me because what I see in Canadian society and elsewhere is when somebody like myself tells somebody in response to a question, do you believe in God? Or goddess or gods or whatever. My answer is no, I don't. And when I hear theists answer that question in the affirmative with a yes, typically there's no unusual reaction. A person is just accepted as this is a normal thing, and they're on their way with the next part of the conversation or whatever they're doing. When an atheist like myself responds negatively with a no, I don't believe, then sometimes we are met with some kind of resistance, perhaps in the form of condescension or some kind of concern for our soul burning in a lake of fire for eternity or something else. And what I'm asking with normalizing atheism is that people will, instead of doing all of that, they'll just treat us the same as the atheists, as the theists, and just consider it a normal thing and be on our way with the next part of the conversation. So that way, in a way, I'm asking people to do less rather than more, and so that everybody can be treated in an equal fashion. So yeah, that's important to me, because this demographic of atheists, of people who don't believe in deities, matters to me. Thank you. You're muted if you're talking. Exile.
How are you doing, Serb? Let's hear from you. Who are you, Serb?
Oh, well, I'm doing good. Well, I mean, I think most of the people that are not Steve's followers, you know, the poor folks over there that are kind of trapped in his cult,
Yeah.
I think they know me. So I'm just going to introduce myself to Steve's people, because they might not have heard of me yet. It's been a while since I talked to Steve. I am the malicious, horrible troll that makes Steve looks like he has a bad case of the dumb. That's who I be.
And
I
that
can
is awesome.
confirm. When I was a mod for Steve, he really thought Serb was Satan.
Simos, can you introduce us?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, certainly. Hello, everybody. Yeah, I'm Simos, and I've been around the community for probably 6 years or so. I first met Steve in Nadia's, and yeah, that's about it, really. I've known him for a long time, and I've never really interacted. We had 1 or 2 debates, and that was enough for me. And I can confirm, Steve is in fact the son of Satan. He actually had a soccer account called Lucifer, for those that remember.
You said Steve, but yeah.
No, Serb
Yeah.
was the son of Satan, and yes, he had a soccer account called Lucifer, who was extremely entertaining back in the day. So yeah, I'd recommend everybody look up Lucifer and find out what an enigmatic person he really is.
Serb has a long and storied history in the great debate community.
Yeah.
Holy Spackle, we all know you, don't we?
Yeah, I'm Holy Spackle. I started in the community as somebody that kind of stumbled upon it. I had a friend who was a co-hosting with Aaron Raw on the science segment of Dogma Debate, and I was gaming with her, and I got sucked into this somehow through a long rabbit hole. I am a theist. I also believe in humanizing everybody from every side. I appreciate Randolph's approach. I think that he is big on approaching people with respect and goodwill, and I can support that. So appreciate his graciousness, and hi all.
Okay. I'm exiled, as you all know. I'm just doing this for the first time, you guys. I am also an atheist. I don't believe in gods. I don't have any gods that I pray to. That's about it. I just wanted to see the people who are being targeted by Steve on this new show that he has. I wanted to start something, and this is the first one. So we might do a lot more of these, because this is a running show for Steve. He's going to target people as people who are beneath him and that sort of thing. And he's going to have a lot of fun. And so I figured I'd give each person that I can possibly give a chance to come on and correct and give their side of the story. So that's what this show is going to be about. So you guys take it away. I know that.
Sorry to interrupt there, but this could be a long series, because he has blocked a lot of people over the 6 years that I've known.
I could end up for the first time in history monetizing my channel and making tons of money probably on
I-
YouTube.
I counted 300 people on their block list that they were sharing. 300 people.
Yeah, and they'll get around to each and every one of you eventually. Don't worry. Yeah, you are going to have your turn on Steve's hate stream. So we'll just do as best we can. I know Randolph as a good and decent person, and I know Randolph. What can you tell people what happened recently, which started? I think this is what caused Steve to target you in the first place. It had something to do with Steve's behavior and you not wanting to appear on his show. If I'm incorrect, please let me know.
Yeah, he approached me, I guess, over a year ago, maybe 2 years now, roughly in that time frame, because he wanted to educate me on atheism. And so we went back and forth a little bit, and I said it ended up that we're going to be having a public debate. So he said he'll host the debate, and I said no, it'll be on neutral ground. We need to find a platform, a debate platform that we're both okay with, where we trust the moderator and host to be impartial. And so I suggested a few. He didn't like the suggestions, and then we came up with one fellow named Jay. The Nevermore Tavern was the name of his channel, and he was going to host it, and I was okay with that. And so Steve and I were going to do that, and then we spent a fair bit of time trying to figure out the schedule, and that kept going back and forth. But then at some point he canceled the debate, and then that came back onto the table. And then later on, I saw a video clip of him and David Silverman engaging willfully in sexual harassment, and he's saying he gives all his consent for it, instead of pushing back and saying, hey, we shouldn't do that, which is what I would expect a normal person to do, or a person to normally do. And then I wrote to the both of them that I don't want to have anything to do with them because I think sexual harassment is wrong, and I pushed back publicly on that. David Silverman responded constructively and has since taken the video down, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Steve, on the other hand, responded very negatively. He seemed pretty upset, pretty angry about this, and then he went into a tirade on Twitter. This all happened on Twitter. And then, so I told him, I'm canceling our upcoming debate because I don't want that association. I don't want to engage with him on any topic like this. And then he blocked me after that. I did promise that I would still look at a video that he did make about one of the websites that I created that covers the definition of atheism. And then he blocked me. And 3 days later, he announced that he had received a restraining order from Katie Joy Polson for harassment or sexual harassment. And he's characterizing it as nonsense, but he did publicly admit that he's received that. So that was kind of interesting, that happened just 3 days after. It looked like, my understanding is that those restraining orders are not granted in 3 days, so it was obviously in the works for some time before that. So this is just coincidental that these things came out. So later on, I did watch the video anyway, the one that he did, because I did promise to do that, and that was separate from all of this. And then my impression of that first video is that he was quite angry, and made a lot of juvenile comments, but he did make a number of critiques as well, most of which I did not agree with. There were a few I did agree with, and I did make the changes to the website accordingly, but there was just a few. And like there were a couple of spelling errors. One was a really good one, is that I had used the word syllogism in the wrong way to mean one or more propositions. And so when he pointed out that that's not the case and it's always two or more, this is a detail that I was not aware of. So I did look into it, and it took a little work to find it, but then I was able to verify it. So I then stopped using the word syllogism because I was referring to just a single proposition and conclusion. So that was correct, and that was helpful. So, you know, I will give credit where credit is due, even with people I find distasteful or rude or angry, because I think it's important when we're discussing ideas to still be able to try to examine them in as non-subjective a way as possible. So that's
something I've noticed about
okay.
you.
Yeah.
Is that you take criticism.
Well, I want to know where I've made a mistake, because it then presents me with an opportunity to improve. Now, when somebody does present something to me that is a mistake, I don't just take them at their word. I will try to make efforts to verify that what they're saying is correct, because they could also be wrong. And so, but I do that on my own. Yeah, it's different in a debate scenario where you're challenging back and forth right there. But if it's something that I have the luxury of time to explore and research, I'll do that, and I'll try to make sure that the information that I have is not wrong at the very least. And being not wrong is not as high a bar as being right. So if I can aim for at least not being wrong, then I know I'm halfway there. So after that, the restraining order thing, the drama unfolded on his channel, and I didn't really pay too much attention to it, because I figured that video he did about my website, that first one, was overall, I just kind of, my opinion to myself was that he just needed to vent. And that gave him his chance to do it. And he's obviously moved on to the restraining order issue and the lawsuit with Kyle on the Great Debate Community. So he's had a bunch of legal things going on. So I figured, okay, he's got other things, and this is past. We're done. I'll just let it go. But then recently he made another video where he said some incorrect and not so flattering things about me. And that's why I'm here now to push back on that, because once, I'll just let it go. Like I said, I thought he just needed to vent, because sometimes people just need that. But now it looks like more like an obsession than just somebody who's letting out some hot air, you know?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I am getting an echo through your. Okay, you might. Okay, there we go. Anyway, I didn't really have anything to say to that, except that I have been watching some of this stuff going down. And as we know, Steve is still very animated over the sexual harassment claims at Katie Joy, and everything about Katie Joy, and the day that Katie Joy's eyebrows are out of place, he makes sure to notice that. He's just all Katie Joy all the time, right?
Eyebrows? What?
I'm being facetious when I say that. So
eyebrows are out of place.
Yeah.
It's such a strange thing to criticize someone about.
I've seen people do it. I've seen people do it, but he did take time out of his busy schedule to do a show on you, and that is what I would like to address now. So I'm going to basically let Simos take over from here. Simos, I think you made some points, right? And
oh, right, okay, well,
some notes. All right.
Yeah, if the first part of the video is done, is that right?
Do we want to play anything from the first part of this video? Does anybody recall?
What do you have queued up here for me to add?
Well, it's the cesspool. Is there anything in the first part of that video that we need to queue up?
Oh, Simos is going to have to queue that up, isn't he?
No, you do the first part.
All right.
And then when it comes to like after, I mean, I think my first timestamp is going to be around. Oh, sorry, it's on the wrong page.
Just for some clarity for the audience, this is not the first video he did of me that I was talking about. This is the new second video, the more recent one, from I guess a week or two ago. Is it? How long ago was this one?
This was just last week. Last week, right?
The other one was over a year ago, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you know who you are. I don't think
he likes
well,
to.
I guess
He
Yeah.
does like to keep it going.
Yeah.
He's not
So
keen
this
on
is-
he's not keen on fresh criticism. Let's put it that way.
This is
And
from August 4th.
This Mr. Brass person he has on, I'm not familiar with him. I don't know him.
I'm familiar. Mr. Brass is a deist. He is a, from what I can tell, a men's rights activist. He is often a troll. But like, I embrace some trolls. Like I think like I say troll you loosely in the sense that he might make you have a frustrating time, but I don't think he's malicious per se. He is block heavy. He will block you as soon as you cross him. And Mr. Brass likes he's like a he kind of reminds me of like a libertarian from what I could gather. You can find him on Twitter. That's where I see him a lot. So
I have never heard of this guy prior
Oh,
to this stream.
he's been around for a long time.
See
Yeah.
how much I pay attention.
Yep. Okay.
been around a long time.
Oh yeah, I've been pretty much around a lot.
Yeah.
Especially, people will know me on Twitter probably more than they know my YouTube.
And you're one of those high quality trolls. You're one of those trolls with intelligence and style, not to harm anybody, just make light of stupidity.
Yeah, pretty much. That's my style. I've always had a dark sense of humor, and Twitter is just one of those places where people give you plenty of ammunition.
That's how the show got its name. Literally, because I kept calling the Twitter a cesspool. So it was kind of apropos that I call this show the cesspool, because Twitter is a cesspool. There is no ifs, ands, buts about it, man. We're all on it. We have to use it. It's kind of a social media must nowadays, but you have to take the bad with the good. But it is a lot of just shit on it. That's what cesspool is.
Well, I will say this: it has given me plenty of content.
Where do you put your content out? I mean, besides Twitter. I mean, do you have any other content you put out?
I do on YouTube.
I don't know if I watch your channel. I remember back in the day, because you've been around very
Hey,
long.
He has
Hang on
a
a minute.
guest, and he doesn't
You were
know
back
his
around
guest.
the day back before you started
Hey,
seeing a lot.
minute.
You used to hang out with a guy named Dean Esme.
Yeah,
Right.
I was part of him for a while.
Why?
Then he really got angry at Shannon over something very stupid, and that was the end of our
When does he
partnership.
not get angry over something stupid?
I haven't talked to him really since then.
What did he used to go by? Oh, I don't know if he still does. What does Dean go by?
I believe he went by a Red Pill Religion.
Red Pill
was
Religion. Yeah.
Red Pill
Yeah.
Religion, Max
Yeah,
Coley,
another name,
Dean,
before that.
Esme. It's
Many
all the same
names.
guy.
This
What was
is
Dean
Dean, is it?
before that?
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, he goes by Red Pill.
It's
Man,
one
Max
of-
Colby. Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Lillian.
Someone that left Red
Couldn't
Pill.
think of the damn.
That's
Yeah, I
awesome.
remember him.
I'm so
I
bad
remember
at
him. He
names.
was
You
offensive
guys
in
want
the
to watch
extreme.
this, and you guys
Yeah.
think that I can remember names? I can't. I'm so bad at names. So, but
Well,
anyways, yes,
Well, I mean, you're very old,
You could
Steve.
just pause it a second.
That's enough.
The fact that this guy, Mr. Brass here, is saying he's got a lot of content from Twitter just after they've turned around and said it's a cesspool, just says everything about Mr. Brass, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's where they choose to do their fighting.
Just saying. Carry on.
Also, hasn't Steve said multiple times he doesn't deal with trolls?
Now that back in the day was definitely something, which is why he was banning people from the GDC. I seem to remember he banned one person that put up a post which actually had on it obvious troll.
Oh yeah, that was me.
Oh, yeah, it was you, wasn't it? Yeah, hashtag
Obvious
obvious troll.
troll.
Giant
And-
bold letters, obvious troll.
Yeah, and he argued for about how many days did he argue with you before
I
he
think-
turned around and said, "You're a troll, I'm going to ban you"?
Yeah, 3 days.
3 days.
3 days. He said, "You're just trolling me," and I said, "Yeah, read the post."
Very observant.
Here we go.
I sometimes say things like, Instagram is incredulous, Twitter is toxic, and Facebook is, well, I won't finish that one.
It is pretty bad. It really
Dangerous.
is.
Because when you make false
And
statements
dangerous.
and you don't care whether it's true or not, and you proliferate them and they promulgate around YouTube, you're committing an ethical. Something that's not ethical. You're committing what's called impermissibility, something that is a moral wrong, in my opinion. So,
Well, yeah. I mean, when you have a large following, or just even a decent sized following, if you're constantly putting out misinformation and not really caring, I mean, that is a bit immoral, and it's very
It's
viceful.
grossly immoral. I mean, and he's been corrected numerous times, and he still doesn't get it. He still doesn't care. So let's put his tweet. Let's put this thread out here. And by the way, this is a much longer thread, and I'm not going to go into all of it because I think you guys are going to get the gist of it. But then we're going to go to his webpage. But basically, I was saying that this was okay. This was from Glenn, who is everybody knows is financing my lawsuit.
He's also known as Mr. Moneybags.
In other ways as well. He
Also
says
known as
my
Ribbit,
issue.
right?
Yeah.
I love it. I didn't think about it before. Steve is a literal money pit.
Some people are masochists. They like to have their wallets robbed. Here we go.
I guess it's nothing to him. It's like going to Burger King.
Is that you guys run a bullshit narrative, and you know it's bullshit. Yeah, well, I think everybody agrees about that.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, that entire uni crowd knows that they are bullshitting. They just don't care. Randolph Richardson falsely accused me of having a restraining order under Violence Against Women's Act, which was determined to be a lie, and he just doubling down and tripling down.
Determined by whom? I should say it certainly wasn't a judge in North Carolina, was it, or wherever it was in California.
It was determined. When was it determined? I swear to God, he can't prove any of that.
The Violence Against Women Act, or VAWA, VAWA, is applicable in the U.S. so that a restraining order that is brought about approved in one state can be applicable through the whole country. It's to try to make things safer for people, and it's a good thing. And because it helps make people safer, because my understanding is there's been some problems with that. Now, there are some programs that help to promote VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, and provide resources for people who are in danger and help them under it. And those ended up losing funding because politicians keep changing their minds on things for all sorts of reasons, I guess. And so some of those programs did get canceled, but the laws themselves are still in effect. They're still in place. The laws didn't expire as far as I know. And the reason I mention this is because this is something that they talk about, but they're not really clear about it, and they make it sound more like it's the law that is. So it is applicable, I guess you can think from a jurisdictional sense. It's interesting that it's not like there's any choice, and a section of the Violence Against Women Act is referenced in the restraining order, as far as I recall. So in that case, that makes it pretty clear that it's applicable. You know,
there's a. I don't mean to interrupt. There's a long thread of Nate the lawyer on Twitter.
Oh, he's
about
excellent.
This today.
He is excellent. I really like Nate the lawyer. I can't say enough good about him.
Same here. And he shows all of the evidence, and he just does this nice long thread and addresses every critic. It's really well done. And you're right. There is a section in that somebody posted where it explains VAWA and what it's about. And
Nate the lawyer,
that it's applicable.
Nate the lawyer has a YouTube channel, and the videos on there are highly educational. He's done some really excellent stuff there. I highly recommend it. Now, as far as the Violence Against Women Act section being referenced on the restraining order, the judge's signature is there. That applies to the whole thing. It doesn't selectively apply to some things and not others, unless it's in a box that specifies that. It's not in a box that specifies that. It applies to everything.
Yeah, and also just to add in quickly, even under their own argument, where they're saying it doesn't apply because it was defunded, which is bullshit, by the way, it has already, and several months later, was refunded. So even under their argument, and that was all done before Mr. McRae got given this restraining order. So it didn't even, their argument, right, is just misdirection, pure unadulterated misdirection.
Well,
one thing that seems strange to me as well is that, you know, here people are talking a lot about this restraining order put onto him. It didn't have to be this way. He didn't have to announce it publicly. He could have kept it private, which I think is what most people would do normally, is they would just try to get it dealt with privately and not bring public attention to it. He put it out publicly. He's put out all this different information about it. So of course people are talking about it. It just feels strange to me that this is a topic of interest to people, because why should it be, you know? But it's just how things roll, I guess.
I don't think any of us expect Steve to shut up about it for the next 4 years or so. We'll see.
So I got a question. Just Steve saying it was defunded specifically.
Yeah, I think. Well, I'm not sure
No.
whether Steve said it, but some of his crowd said it.
I think they've been saying that the law was expired, but it's not the law that was expired. It's some of the programs that lost their funding.
Yeah.
I think it was actually a series of a statute editing and addition. Right, because I know the federal rape shield law is still in effect, which is part of the Women's Act.
Say that again. You know what happened?
Oh, I'm pretty sure the federal rape shield law is still in effect.
Yeah.
Which is from the Violence Against Women Act, and that's what protects women from certain questions while they're being interrogated on the stand.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the aspects of VAWA might have been challenged or removed or something, but I think it was their funding at one point that was removed. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it was reinstated several months later. It was only because of the crisis in government at the time about funding.
I see. Okay. So.
And again, that happened before McRae got given his restraining order. So even if it was the case that their argument had weight, it didn't, because it was all done and dusted before he was given the restraining order. So clearly funding has nothing to do with it. Not that it did in the first place anyway.
For the pedantic, it's a TRO, right? Is that what I'm understanding?
No, it's HRO, isn't it?
Harassment restraining order, and it was temporary at the time.
And the H is for harassment, not for hearing, and the T is for temporary. They're all still restraining orders. They just happen to be a little bit more specific with a pre-qualifier. That's all.
It's the longest possible one you can get given under ex parte rules, I believe.
It was granted ex parte, yes.
So it's like your license being suspended for X amount of time versus your license being suspended for all time.
Yeah.
Well, it's like arguing that I don't have a wrench when I have a monkey wrench.
Oh, they're arguing. They are arguing every single angle they can possibly argue over, and the fact is, it's a restraining order. And it was granted to her for 2 years. Now, he had the chance to come to court and, protest it, say that the evidence is wrong or whatever. And he didn't do that. Instead, he entered into a non-disclosure agreement with Katie Joy Paulson for 1 year, and as soon as the 1 year was up, he started right back harassing, threatening to sue her, whatever he's planning on doing. He just hasn't shut up about her ever since. So
he's arguing to the wrong people. He needs to argue to the judge. Why is he arguing to everybody else?
Right? I know. It's an excellent. You really need to check out the Twitter thread by Nate the lawyer on this today. All these arguments came up, and that people are just like, why is he still even arguing anymore?
Yeah,
you should link it in the description. You should link that Twitter thread in the description.
Well, I mean, I know why he's arguing it to everyone else. It's because his life consists of sitting in a closet-sized apartment in front of a computer eating dollar store lobster rolls.
Yeah. Yes. When your life is very small, you focus on things sometimes a little too much.
When your life is very small, everything else looks very big.
Yeah, and of course he might be, looking for content.
Do you want me to find that Twitter thread by Nate and show it now? Because I don't know how much time.
Maybe find it and just add it to the video description. We should probably.
Okay. All right. I will do that. Later.
All right. I'm going to press on the video.
Okay.
This is what the atheist community has as leadership, because he is the quote president of the Canadian Atheists, which I don't know if it has more than one person. Does anybody know the size of it? Because I try to find, and I was just curious.
Can I just say something there? I'd just like to address that. I'm not in Canada, and Randolph, you're not a leader in such of myself. I am an atheist. However, I would gladly welcome you as a leader. I think when I hear you debate, your integrity is beyond reproach, and you're actually one of the nicer atheists that I've interacted with, and respectful atheists. So yeah, more power to you. I think you're a rock star in the world of atheism.
I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. This touches my heart. I'm just delighted to hear this. Thank you so much. When it comes to leadership, I don't think of myself as a leader, although I do know that I'm serving in this role in the organization, but somebody has to run these organizations, and this is one I've started, so of course I'm running it. I'm promoting, one of the ideas that I promote is that people should each be their own leaders, and in preference to looking up to somebody else for leadership. Look to other people for examples, for sure, and pick and choose what are the good qualities and decide for yourself. That's kind of what I'm promoting, because quite often leaders don't have a person's best interests at heart. It's very often, like if you take a look at people in political roles, it's impossible for them to make everybody happy. And so they can't do that anyway, even if they wanted to. It's an impossible task. But, and then, so it's in some cases that's on purpose. In other cases, they genuinely try and just can't do it because it's doomed to failure. So this is why people need to be, we each need to be our own leaders of ourselves. We need to be our own masters and not be looking up to somebody else or some deity for leadership or something like that. But yeah, your what you just said, Simos, means so much to me. Thank you so much.
Somebody needed to say that, because Steve has just been so disparaging of this person. It's so disrespectful. It's ridiculous.
And I'd also like to point out that I am a hard atheist. I believe there are no gods. That's not exactly the same position, but as far as I'm concerned, we're both atheists, and as such, we're on the same side and we're on the same team. We may come from slightly different positions, but that's no reason that argument should ensue at all. In fact, quite the opposite. I think we can learn from each other about how to deal with theists in different ways, and hopefully more respectfully, and elevate the conversation, as I feel that Randolph does most exquisitely.
To me, atheism is among the most diverse demographics in the world, because that one characteristic brings us together of not believing in deities. And there are many atheists like yourself who also hold the position that there are none. And you're correct. I don't hold that position. You do, but we're both qualify as people who don't believe in any deities. So that's where we are in the same demographic here, for sure.
Of one or two? I don't know.
I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it much myself. Although I will say, as a guy that's into men's rights and stuff, the VAWA is probably one of the most destructive things that happens to many men.
Stop, please.
Because
he speaks like one of those toxic MGTOW, MGTOW people, the men going their own way, who most of whom I've met so far seem to be bitter about a past divorce. Not all, but most seem to be in that camp. So I
can confirm, as somebody that's paid attention to Mr. Brass and engaged with Red Pill religion quite a bit, like so much so I was in their server for quite a bit and interacted with Dean Esme quite a bit, and I've heard an earful about what they think about Shannon Q quite a bit. I can tell you are spot on that he's definitely that. So
I think what he just said was absolutely disgusting, and I would consider myself on that side of the argument, and I just think this is a terrible misrepresentation of the position that men should have towards women. I find it absolutely disgusting that he should say that it's the most destructive thing. No. The most destructive thing is misogynistic men. That's the most destructive thing. And for you to act like one and then call this piece of legislation, which is there to ensure the safety of women in vulnerable positions, destructive, I think is just it's beyond the pale.
Well, this is who Steve signed up for and said let's co-host, so let's press on and take a look at Mr. Brass.
Because all it really takes is a false accusation, and your entire life is ruined from the get-go. So the fact that they're trying to pull this is, I think they're trying to get you canceled.
Oh, they've been doing that for years. They've been doing that for years, and it's a narrative that they're running. It is a pure defamation. There's no question about that. It is a falsity. It's made
citation needed, because there's certainly plenty of evidence out in the community and plenty of testimony from people that have been disparaged, women that have been disparaged by Steve. And I find it, I've witnessed it myself, and I'm sickened by it. I think this is, I don't know what to say. I just find it despicable.
Thank you, Simos. Yeah, I think I agree. A false accusation. Is he saying that the restraining order is a false accusation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
all the other accusations, some of which we've witnessed,
all
and we know are not false because we've seen him do it live on camera.
Yeah.
It's misogyny writ large, and I hate it.
It was disturbing to me, and I'm not easily disturbed. The harassment that was going against Katie Joy, who I don't even fangirl over. I was sitting back watching it. I was horrified. They were actually going into private groups that were meant for women with a particular medical issue on Facebook. Somebody went in there and started, because they knew Katie Joy had been in there, they started screenshotting her stuff, and Steve was posting it on Twitter. I was appalled. I couldn't believe it. The name of the private group was right there on the screenshots and that sort of thing. That's how I found it and reported it to the admins so they could get the person, whoever was in there, stealing the screenshots and sharing them. I think these people were just out of control at the time. And honestly, I've never seen anybody get a restraining order for online harassment before, but I feel like it was appropriate in this case.
Overdue. I mean, not just appropriate, but
there was
well
so
past
much.
the point.
A judge certainly thought it was appropriate, or they wouldn't have signed off on it based on the evidence that they saw. So, and the fact that there is a document out there that is a restraining order that he shares on Twitter sometimes, I think is really makes it really easy to justify saying, yeah, there's a restraining order there. You know, come on.
Yeah.
And let's not, I just want to add one last thing, which is, it's not just Steve that's doing this. It's his sycophants around him as well that are deliberately targeting vulnerable women and falsely accusing them of terrible crimes. And it's sickening. It's absolutely sickening. And the fact that none of them stand up and call it out just shows how little backbone they really have. And I would include Steve in that.
It is not a cult. Go ahead.
It is. It has caused harm, obviously, to reputation and things of that nature. But the worst part is, like I said, he just doesn't care. He just doesn't care. And by the way, the atheist community in a whole has not ever. Well, not anybody has ever denounced him from the atheist community. I mean, we have atheists that have, but they're not really part of the atheist community any longer because they just find that them to be this type of moral lacking of turpitude. So I don't know, man. I don't know why the atheist community went to shit the way it did. They could have been much stronger if they just would have kept to the core values and not ingratiated themselves with problematic.
This is disgusting. See, it reveals that he's got such a strong disdain for atheists, the whole demographic, by talking like this, saying that it's gone to crap and whatnot. And he's saying that I don't care. I do care. I care about what goes on in the community. People haven't been pushing back on what I'm saying because what I'm saying isn't wrong. So there's his answer if he's wondering why people aren't pushing back.
And I'd just like to add one last thing in there. Well, you wouldn't think it's gone to shit, and if you hadn't have blocked it. The fact is, you blocked most of the atheist community that were around, and that's why you have no interaction with them, and you do not know what this current state is. It's still going strong. It's still the same people, right? And if you knew those people, they're still friends with everybody. So just the fact that you've actually decided to isolate yourself from the atheist community, having already then isolated the theist community, just goes to show why you're in the state you're in now. Yeah. And why you're desperate for content as well.
He's special. He's a special category. He's an agnostic, guys.
He's learning the lesson that if you block enough people, essentially all you did was block yourself.
Oh
Well,
yeah.
like this.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
Confucius say that,
whatever.
apparently.
The problem is sort of like I think it's like the problem of intellectuals, like some people say it as, where you have people that are maybe good at one specific narrow area, but then when they go out of that area, they're just complete shit.
I don't know what areas he's good at, because if he has one, it's certainly not on his webpage.
Well, not Randolph in specific, but I know like guys
Steve,
like Aaron and
Steve,
they have like one specific field.
He's good at phylogeny.
Yeah, they're good at like maybe at evolution and stuff like that, and they're very great at that. But once they go anywhere outside of that narrow range, like just know.
distilling water,
Just to let
maybe.
you know that Lumos says he has a pair of waterproof headphones, and he'll be listening
I
to
disagree with
us
these
in the
guys.
showers. So basically,
So I think the only person who's an expert in every field and every topic is Serb. Other than that, nobody's a specialist.
Christopher Hitchens
So-
probably,
Don't put that hex on
probably
me.
comes close.
I mean- so I think like the fact that like Aaron Ra is good in evolution and stuff like that, I think that can be very helpful to people. I think him educating people about evolution is a good thing. Like these guys make it sound like, as soon as he talks about anything else, he has to be an equally as astute on the topic as he is on evolution. It's just so stupid, in my opinion.
Hey, Rockalot's here, along with all these other familiar names in the chat. Hello, everybody. Thank you
Hey,
for
Uni.
tuning in.
Thank you.
Unirock. Aaron Ra is a fantastic educator. He's a professional educator too. He does it as a profession, or he did in the past. He's working at schools. So he teaches science, and evolution is certainly a part of it. He understands logic, at least for the science part. He has to, obviously. So there's another area right there, logic. So this refutes Mr. Brass, and the things that Aaron talks about seem to be consistent with logic from what I can tell. Matt Dillahunty has become a specialist in logic, and what happens, the reason I mention Matt Dillahunty is because Steve will sometimes bring up both Aaron Ra and Matt Dillahunty and criticize them and say that they're stupid like me or something. And like both those guys, they know so much more about logic and science and things than I do. So I look up to both Matt and Aaron Ra as being really excellent in these fields. And Matt Dillahunty has a Patreon Projects Presents series on his YouTube channel where he teaches logic, and he does it in a way that he's not using diagrams. So you can save it and listen to it in your vehicle while you're driving or while you're exercising or something. It's really a fantastic series, and I've gotten a lot out of it, and I highly recommend both of their channels. Aaron Ra and Matt.
They're usually about half-hour long or so, and as I say, they're very enlightening, I feel, and give you a really good perspective on the individual topics. So I'd highly recommend them as well. I've learned a lot from that series. And also, he does debate reviews, and that also is a very good resource. What Matt doesn't know about debates isn't worth knowing. So
he's very good at those reviews. Exiled, could you move the playback speed to 1.25? That'll probably help a bit.
I'll let Holy Spackle do.
He's taking a shower with.
That tends to be quite reasonable.
Yeah, conserve water, shower with a friend. Okay, so Manoff says this, and this is only what, yesterday? And he's been saying this for a while, but that's what I'm saying. You don't have to go back and find anything. It's all the same nonsense. He says, oh, you know what? I'll let you read it. Save my voice, because my voice is shot. Oh, speaking of shots, by the way, I got another shot. Not to do a tangent, but I got another shot yesterday, Mr. Brass. Yeah, I got a Technus update. You're supposed to get them every 10 years. Somebody said every 30 years, and I asked them about it. They're like,
speaking of non sequiturs,
I don't know.
you
Is
read
that
it.
for the fecal impaction?
Yeah, I got a Technus, percussus, whatever the hell it is, shot. So.
I apologize
It
for
hurts.
the
It hurts yesterday,
captioning.
but
It's always hilarious.
All right, so you want me to read Randolph's like me in court, like beginning with the
Yeah, you
in
be
the court?
Randolph, I'll be me. Nobody else wants to be me.
Oh, all right.
How
In accordance with
inappropriate right off the bat.
The Violence Against Women Act, VAWA, all states, tribes, and territories in the USA must grant full faith and credit to protection orders issued by other jurisdictions. Restraining orders are a type of protection order, including the one served to you.
Okay, so what he's talking about is under
That
the
comes
VAWA,
from
which
the act itself.
would expire in December 21st, 2018. There was something in it referring to Title 8, as actually Title 18 of the USC code. Actually, was it Title 18? I know it's 18 USC, but I forget the actual title. But it was 18 USC 2265, which was full faith and credit given to protection orders. That's what I was referring to. That's what's in the actual TRO. It has no relevancy to the VAWA any longer. The VAWA just supported that. But the narrative out there, as we pointed out yesterday, well, no, it wasn't yesterday, last show, whatever it was, on Ethan, is that they were claiming that the judge had went out of his way, or her way, I don't remember, it was his, to put it under VAWA, right? Because there's, quote, tons and tons of evidence. We know that's a lie. We know that didn't happen. So Randolph Richardson is running a narrative. And I tell him, VAWA expired December 21st, 2018, idiot. I'm being nice here. 18 USC Title 2265 refers to full faith and credit given to protection orders, not the VAWA, which just means it goes statewide, which I would have never fallen under as I've never met the person. Are you willfully the stupid or being completely dishonest? To fall under VAWA, you have to at least have some kind of relationship with the person. He doesn't care about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also in Article 11 of the Constitution, full and faith credit, yes.
Well, to me, you can never discount it possibly being both, that he's both stupid and dishonest.
They're not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, they tend to kind of work together.
Is he like
Mhm.
defying reality here?
It's unfucking believable. I've got to say. I mean,
it's like it didn't happen, but it's right there in in black and white.
If you read the restraining order, it doesn't say, "Oh, temporary restraining order stamped all over it." Okay, this is the longest possible restraining order the judge could have given under the circumstances. All right, so okay, temporary. Well, you're going to die someday, so of course everything is fucking temporary. So what are you actually saying? I don't know. That's some fucking rubbish semantic argument, number one. Secondly, VAWA is mentioned in the restraining order, right? That makes it nationwide, not statewide. That's the point of it. And it's written actually in the order and signed at the bottom by the judge. So this is just willful misinformation being put out there. It's a trope that has happened many times with Steve over the years.
I also want to point out that he's not denying the order. He's not denying that it had what do you say it was what the US it's the 18 US code 2265. He's not denying that exists, and that's one of the reasons why he got it. Right? He's only denying here that he got it because of the Violence Against Women's Act. Which is like, you know what? Even if he's right, he doesn't do you any favors. Right? You're still admitting to getting the restraining order and to the reasons why and everything.
Yeah, evidence or no evidence, you definitely got a restraining order. Your name is on the top of it.
He's just throwing shit. He's just chipping away at, and it doesn't matter. He's painted right into a corner with this restraining order.
Yeah,
unfortunately for him.
I mean, of course, just go to Young Earth Creationist and you find that.
Mikey Cage says, Steve, you seem to cover a lot of people that have a big problem with fact checking their shit. LOL. Yeah, well, that's how I kind of started this channel, right? I mean, I'm all into fact checking. And what's funny is when they try to fact check me, they get so much shit wrong. Mostly because they don't have access to me. They don't have access to what I know and what I have in my documentation, and my files, and my notes. They don't know.
Can we stop it there for a second? Yeah. So fact checking is not asking the person whether they're fucking innocent or not, right? That's Steve's number one fucking mistake, right? I don't care what you know. I don't care whether you think you've got special evidence. What I care about is the public records which show you've got a restraining order and show that somebody you had on your show did some very bad things which you decided to think were incorrectly accused of, right? I mean, I'm trying to be diplomatic and not say what it is because we all fucking know what it is. All right, and that's the fucking problem. If you'd done your fact checking right back at the beginning, right, before you even had this person on, you would have found out that he was in fact guilty and convicted of a serious crime, which you decided to go on and say, in your opinion, was consensual. That is disgusting.
Well, that's because he listened to his story, talked to his best friend, and he found that it was believable. Yeah.
Because that's what fact checking is for him, right? He just said it again here. They don't have access to me. They don't have access to what I know, because
Secret
those
evidence.
are the facts. Those are the facts.
Not a cult.
How philosophically naive and stupid does that sound?
Yeah, but the implication of that is you're wrong until Steve informs you that you're correct.
And this type of attitude is pretty much why most of the smart people in the GDC told him to take a hike ages
about
ago.
what I know. And so they have to fill in the blanks, right? They go, oh, well, I'm just going to suppose this, and I'm going to run this narrative, and I'm going to bullshit here. You guys know me, so you guys can come to me directly, and you guys get the facts directly from me because I have the evidence.
But
Yeah.
Steve, don't
Directly from Steve, because he has the evidence. Nothing to do with going and fact checking for yourself and not taking his word for it. This is what the sycophants do. And I would just say he's got a wonderful career in cinema photography.
Yeah, I
This
don't
is pure projection.
believe me. When I put the tablets in the hat, I can definitely translate them.
just a prescriptivist that wants
Would those
to
be gold or
atheist what
fool's
atheism means?
So this was the original. This was the original quote, and there's more to it. There's more. There's just this one place. The judge added that on his own. This was a claim. This was a lie. Randolf Richardson has been perpetuating a lie, and the atheist community says nothing. And this, to me, harms actual victims. This makes it on the level of, hey, you know what? You don't like what somebody's saying on the internet. I'm going to try to get a TRO on you and shut you down, and then claim that a judge added Violence Against Women's Act to make it sound like it's far worse than it actually was.
That's not why there was a restraining order.
And
yeah, harassment.
They don't hand out restraining orders like prizes in a Cracker Jack box just because somebody doesn't like what you said. Of course, she didn't like it that you were harassing her. The judge accepted the evidence and signed the restraining order. That's what happened because you were violating the law. You were doing harassment, or maybe not violating the law, but you were causing some serious problems. And here in Canada, it would be a violation of the law.
See, you don't understand. The judge was wrong because right there you can see in the thing.
Oh yeah, I'm wrong.
Evidence.
The judge is wrong. I accept that I could be wrong, but
You know what else?
judges have to
Evidence
be
of
careful
which there
about
was
this. They
none.
have to justify why they're signing these things. So it's very serious if a judge said that's correct. And here's
Nothing
proof.
the judge considered evidence is real evidence, according to Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also just point out quickly that he's saying this was a claim. And according to Steve, if I remember, Serb, claims are evidence.
Oh, God, I forgot about that. Oh,
Yeah.
man.
So
I think
that
I
was-
still have that somewhere.
So,
I'll try and dig it out. Sorry, Holy, go ahead.
I just want to point out that in all these conversations that we hear of Steve, Mr. Brass, but Mr. Brass is an MRA, so I'm not too shocked. Manya, Golden Unicorn, Cheshire, they all say actual victims, but they're the ones that denied an actual victim as being an actual victim, whitewashing what Warden did.
Bizarre. Yeah.
It's bizarre, but they always qualify actual victims as if there's a whole bunch of victims that are just lying, because it's just so easy to lie about these things, It is constantly, all the time. It's just super easy. Yeah. You just listen to that qualifier and count how many times sometime. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yep, they do it all the time. You're correct. I believe you. I've
Randolph
witnessed
doesn't
it.
care. So, anyways, that's all I want to talk about that real quick. But you can just see that he's already one of those people that are just completely dishonest. He has no compunction to want to fix his shit. There's no need to. He just thinks that, look, I'm an atheist and I'm going to do whatever I want to shit on people. And it has, by the way, that's nothing to do with atheism. There's a great atheist out there. There's atheists that I support, right? I mean, atheist pastor is a wonderful atheist.
Yeah.
There's many
I know.
wonderful atheists.
So, guys like Graham Oppie.
Oh, God, yes.
I blocked him the same day I just blocked Steve just recently, just for similar reasons. He's saying that I have some kind of hang up, and no, I thought Steve needed to vent that first video, and I just let it go. But now he's continuing. He seems to be obsessed. So there comes a point where you can ignore stuff for so long, and then there comes a point where you kind of need to kind of stand up and say, no, this is wrong. And that's what I'm doing here today.
I love guys like that. They really, they bring up interesting points, and I love going over. Oh God, we have this
Avi
website.
is brilliant, and yeah, and I keep on telling people, look, and I'm going to put this out there very, very strongly here. If you want to be the best possible atheist you can be, you should not be listening to people like Randolf Richardson. You should be listening to people like
I'm gonna
Randolph
address this.
Mackey.
I need to address, to be the best possible atheist is, to me, a ridiculous expectation. Because atheism, again, is a diverse demographic. Each person decides who they are and how to be who they are, the best person they can be. Whether you're a theist or an atheist, you get to make that decision for yourself, and you get to strive to reach that goal for what you think is best for yourself. His idea of what qualifies as a best atheist can just be tossed in the garbage, in my opinion.
I just wanted to say that while you explained that very well, Randolph, I was laughing. I was sitting here cracking up with my mute button on, that he would say, if for you to be the best possible atheist, you have to listen to these people and these people and these people. This is why people are starting to look at him like some kind of wannabe cult leader. Yeah, it's just so stupid.
Well, also what he said is ridiculous. That's easy to notice. But like, for example, Randolph, right? It's like saying that you're atheisting wrong. You need to atheist harder.
That's an opinion.
And
Hilarious.
I would also say I became
An example of an opinion is what I should have said.
I became an atheist in the 70s, and one of my goals in life was to be the best atheist I could be, which is to rely on myself and my own intellect and willpower to get myself through this life in the best way I possibly could, to be able to look back at my life and say, I was happy. I was happy with the decisions I made. I was happy with the way I treated people. And I can contently go to my past. It's the end, basically the end forever, obviously, because I don't believe in afterlife.
It seems though that you mean the best human, the best person that you can
Yeah,
be.
I'm a humanist, really. So yes, I do mean that. But right now I'm talking about atheism, and I wanted that to be a demonstration to the theists around me, Christians mainly, of course, because of the country I live in, that atheism wasn't some kind of terrible affliction, right? Given to non-believers in unrighteousness and all of the rest of the bullshit that they say and did say. Less so now in my country, fortunately. And as such, it's led me to, I think, to lead a happier life and a more contented life than I would otherwise have had if I'd just fallen into the same old rigmarole of going along with other theists which weren't as dedicated to a moral life as that I have been. So I'm particularly pleased with the decisions I've made in terms of my atheism. And obviously it led me, as you say, actually, to humanism, which is a far superior moral code, I feel, than theism. So
I think this is a really good point by Unirock. Sad these guys feel they must put down Randolph for doing something good. They are really trying to gatekeep the community while acting like victims. Very well said.
Cyril, name some other Draper, McCormick.
Yeah, Draper. I'm saying Schoenberg, the divine hiddenness thing.
Yeah, I don't. Does I have his name?
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, I know the divine hiddenness argument, but yeah. So I mean, those are the ones that are published. Those are the atheists you want to go to. These are not atheists of any academic standing. They're political people. They're just people that think they know about a topic when they really don't. Because Randolph doesn't know fuck all about atheism, and this page here is really solidifying that to no end. I mean, he starts off. I mean, look at the domain, Mr. Brass.
Hang on. Okay, they're just political people, right? Oh, really? Okay, they're just political people, and so that's really, really bad because we all know that political people and activists in general are all despicable. Yeah, there's no hope for the world under that view because climate change is a serious problem. So
and
please.
What is there to know about atheism? There's not very much. It's just a classification. Same like the classification of color. What is there to know about it? Basically what it is. That's all there is to it. You know, individual colors you can know about. Individual atheists you can know more about. But what there is to know about atheism, it's right on this webpage that he's showcasing. So there
It's
you go.
also confusing, and if we only turned to Steve, we could all understand.
Yeah, I think somewhere along the lines when he was distilling water, I think he accidentally put his brain into the vat and distilled that.
Yeah.
Steve,
I'm just
demystifying atheism for the masses with a Ouija board.
oh, the Ouija board story. Oh, hopefully we can get to that because that was a funny one.
Defineatheism.com.
Yeah, the official definition of it, he calls it. Yeah, Burgess Jackson is not. Burgess Jackson, I think, is actually a theist. Burgess Jackson's not an atheist, but he's very good. His paper is really, really good against Flu's presumption of atheism.
Now,
But okay, so I don't even know.
it
Here's the thing: I don't even know where to start here. I
you
mean,
could stop this for a second. It might be tempting for somebody to say, they're theists. What do they know about atheism? Why does their opinion matter? And same with Mr. Brass being a deist, apparently. Why should it matter what he has to say? Well, I do think everybody can have valid opinions on things. I do think, though, there would be more value, obviously, if the majority of the opinions were taken from atheists. And one thing I find is that in philosophy, there are specific disciplines of philosophy, like philosophy of mind, philosophy of religion, and others. And philosophy of religion is where I find a lot of this stuff seems to come from, that this idea that atheists are bad, atheists must have a burden of proof, must take a position, and all this kind of stuff that they do. My impression is that quite a few of the people involved in philosophy of religion are theologians and theocrats, some with some kind of vendetta against atheism. They want to wipe atheism out. So that, to me, seems to be a bit of a bias against atheists and atheism coming from philosophy of religion. So when these guys are talking about philosophy, they're usually talking about the philosophy of religion communities that are out there presenting that, because normally in philosophy, my understanding is you want dissenting views, because that's the fuel that keeps the fire going, to keep the conversations and examinations of ideas more interesting. You want different points of view. You want people to disagree and debate on things, not just for the sake of disagreeing, though. You want that for the sake of people to explore different perspectives. Because without this dissent, without these disagreements and different points of view, philosophy ends up looking a lot more like something that's dogmatic, something more that's not really so useful as philosophy, as general philosophy anymore. That's just my opinion, though.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that too much. Philosophy taught me to unmute, so there we are. Anyway, yeah, and also, you know, I think, you know, what did they say? You know, you get three philosophers in a room, and you're going to get three opinions. So, yeah, what do you expect? You know what I mean? And that's the way it should be. Just like with the first thing you do with any scientific thesis is try and tear it down. And it's the same thing with philosophers. The first thing they do when someone comes up with a new philosophical idea is someone starts critiquing it, but they don't critique it in this malice way, but through insults, right, and ad homs, which, you know, I think is just pointless. And you know, I think if you really wanted to elevate the discussion, you would take out the insults, you would take out the ad homs.
Well, it's interesting too, because as somebody, well, I'm kind of on that borderline theist kind of thing, but as somebody that was so knee deep in theology, and to be exposed to philosophy for the first time and wrap my head around ideas, I did receive the exposure to philosophy so much better with people that made it an exploration of ideas, a meeting of the minds, a way of, you know, internal critique, external critique, and learning all this stuff. I had a better experience that way than the folks that came in and made philosophy pedantic, a chore, and a blood sport. And I just want to say, like, if you're new to philosophy, it doesn't have to be a miserable experience. It can be actually really cool.
Yeah, spot on. Absolutely spot on. I couldn't, Yes, you actually nailed it right there. It doesn't have to be, weaponized, and it's not weaponized by professionals and people who actually study it. So I think they understand that no position is sacred, and no position is going to be absolutely true when it comes to in-depth subjects. So logic, maybe you can get away with that, but you can't get away with that in philosophy in general. So thank you, Holy. I think that's.
You tell me. You took notes. So you tell me what you want to start, and we'll let you kind of guide this, because I've already done this once on the logic stuff. So,
Well, I went over the etymology.
Etymology. Okay.
That's where my stuff begins.
Do it. Take the floor, man. Lead us through this.
Yeah. In his, in these etymology support section, he goes over the fact that atheism is atheos, but he, for some dumb reason, and many people do this, but they forget to attach the ism to it. And just says, "Oh, well, it's just godless."
Yeah.
Well, to attach the ism is.
Stop there, please. Right. Right. There's one thing I want to say, and then I just want to turn it over to Sigler, and then maybe I can share the screen and we can go through the links that I've got, because it'll be a lot quicker than trying to listen to what Mr. Brass has got to say, which is either trivial or just straight out wrong, or just uninformative as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, atheos, originally, and this is written, was without gods, living without gods. Specifically, it's a Greek word, and it was specifically living without the Greek gods. So it certainly didn't mean that you couldn't be a theist, right? And that seems to me the derivation, and that doesn't mean that that's the way the word is used these days, necessarily, but it shows that this understanding that it's never been used this way is completely false. Absolutely, completely false. I think this is where the word comes from, and it's still used this way in more, I would say, the majority of people in the world use it this way without, rather than the way that I use it with non. So
that's been my experience too.
Yeah.
So,
and it's understandable that way, because most people aren't philosophically trained to understand or to think in one, just one way, right? They've got several ways they're going to think, right? They've got an emotional connection. They've got an intellectual connection. They've got several different ways that they bring to this, right? And the reasons that, many people have many different reasons, as you're saying, it's herding cats. There's many reasons why people come to atheism. And it doesn't have to be this one pseudo-intellectual way, as far as I'm concerned.
Or they're like me and have always been atheists.
Yeah, I mean, likewise. I came to atheism at a very young age, and when I was asked why I was an atheist when I was 7, I just said, I don't need God. That's it. I'm an atheist, and I've been an atheist since. So
You're thinking for yourself since age 7, which is wonderful.
Yeah, it's fortunate, to say the least.
So this is an issue I've had with basically this argument about what is atheism for like 20 years at this point. I remember being a small lad arguing on my dad's bulletin board before the internet about the definition of atheism.
2400 BPS?
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't get is that atheism is not atheist, except for you've crammed ism on the back of it. It's theism with an A in front of it. So it's God doctrine. And if you want to say it honestly doesn't matter whether you want to say without or not, because it's not a negation, right? So it's either not God doctrine or without God doctrine.
Yeah.
They don't even understand how the prefixes and suffixes work.
Yeah. The affixes in linguistics are fairly clear. Now, to be fair, linguistics does, the experts in linguistics I know who I've talked with over the years about this sort of thing have told me that even the alpha privative, the A prefix, which is synonymous with non and synonymous with not, and these sometimes, like majority of the time, the meaning's pretty consistent, but there are situations where there are groups of people who will misunderstand it and use it in different ways. It does happen, but for the most part, so linguistics is kind of like fuzzy logic in a way. It's not perfect and consistent all the way through, but it does tend to strive for that, because you need to have clear communication, and overall, for the most part, it's pretty clear. So
I agree. It's just they're acting as if the normal way is it's completely different from how it's actually used.
And they're trying to say philosophy is the ruler of this here, and I've even heard people claim that atheism is a philosophical topic primarily. No, it's not. It is on its own, just like how color is on its own. But it is covered in a lot of different areas, and it gets used. But my experience in talking with philosophers over the years is atheism rarely comes up. It's mostly things about ethics and morals and other kinds of topics that come up more often in philosophy.
Okay, so we're going to my screen. So if the volume isn't right out there, please somebody say so. And I do have the box checked, so we should be sharing audio. And yeah, let me just see. So I'm not sure exactly where we're going with this, but I'm starting at 21:30. So are you there, sir?
I am.
Okay, let's give it a go anyway.
What the hell are you talking about? And then he's like, atheism, not theism. No, that's not what the A means in atheism. This has been well established. This is documented from Stanford Encyclopedia. It's documented for Oxford, Cambridge, that the A means not as in the negation of the proposition.
Right, that's just actually false, as I've explained already. A theos is without atheism, and that's how the word was originally used, and it is the majority of the usage of the word today. Guess what? Most people aren't philosophers, and so it's much larger group of people that believe in atheism without gods than it is that believe in atheism in the positive sense of not believing gods exist.
Well,
So,
also, like I said before, in English, not does not mean negation, as in logic.
Anti or counter would probably be better suited for that, do you think?
Yes, it would be much better suited for that. That's way closer to an actual negation.
Okay, cool. Okay, let me just see where we are. 25:37. So this is going to take me a little use to get going, but we will get there. Oh, no. Oh dear, 25:37. Okay, you ready?
I have one at 23:51.
23:51. Beg your pardon. Thank you for saying that.
A lot of these people are using that word polysemous, which I never even really heard anybody out there using before until I brought it up and said it was polysemous. And all of a sudden, I was like, people are saying the same thing. I'm like, and then they're saying, you know what's funny? They argue it to me. I see it on Facebook all the time. They're like, this word is polysemous. And I'm like, I've been saying that for how long? I mean, and by the way, a lot of them will parrot what they've heard and the arguments that they've heard. And I'm like, yeah, that's my stuff.
Yeah, right about there. There's Steve, the gate of which all knowledge comes to people, right? This is how people learn the word polysemous.
And I'd like to say polysemous is a Latin word. So congratulations, Steve. If you could also inform us of how the fall of the Roman Empire happened, we'd very much appreciate it.
Right. Eyewitness testimony. And oh man. And this is something that was going to come up repeatedly, right? Steve is going to say things like, and this is not what it means, and this is not how it's done, and this is not how people use it or say it. And then 5 seconds later, he'll go, but it can be that.
Yeah.
So basically, in my notes here, all I have is, it doesn't mean that! Exclamation point, but it does. That's what Steve says repeatedly.
Okay, moving on to the next one.
Which is not brilliant.
It's yeah. Anyway, it's his habit. Anyway, let's just.
It may just get derailed. So Okay, so this is called a tail. It's a logical tail. It means the negation of something. Okay, you can use a tilde, you can use a tail, but whatever. And it means negation. Okay. B is belief, believing psychological. No.
It's actually not a tilde. That's just the symbol for not.
Now he could work. Now he's changing it.
I just wanted to point out, he says B is belief. Well, now let's just take a look in his WASP argument, which I have here. I'm just going to read from it rather than actually say anything. So this is Steve's own argument posted on his page, where he actually says, given the predication of belief, where B is believes or believes that. So, yeah, brief and believing is the same. That's believes. So he's just contradicting his own argument here.
There's these. My understanding is that these letters can be whatever you assign them to be, and normally people will try to pick a letter that kind of matches the word that you're using to represent if they can. And I guess the issue would come up is if you have two words that start with the same letter and you need to represent them differently. But aside from that, it's usually not a problem like here. And synonyms can be helpful with resolving that. And I specify this at the beginning here so that, define your terms first. And then that way, when you're explaining things, the terms are known. The key map. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the fact that Steve defines the letter B exactly the same way that you do. And then in this, just reads your one and complains about it. That's not what B means. Well, in your own argument, that is what B means.
Well, so he's mapping it the same way I do. Yeah. Yeah, and that's a lot of people do that, but I don't have a problem if he wants to use different mapping. Fine, but reading this document, the map makes it clear what we're doing. So okay.
So what is the big giant point?
He wants to use it the same way. Go ahead. Sorry, Axel.
What is the big giant point that he's saying no about, like as if it's really important?
So he's trying to say that the atheism is not a belief, right? Because he wants it to be the proposition there are no gods. Right? What Simon is pointing out, in all of Steve's notation for going back years at this point, he always notes it as a belief.
And normally, I just find this comes from religious apologists who try to use this tactic, like Dr. William Lane Craig does this. He goes out there, is atheism true? Because he's treating it as that specific proposition. He's limiting the scope of what atheism is in an attempt to impose a burden of proof on atheists who don't hold that position, and that's manipulative, and that's what I push back against. And if someone like Simos is fine with that because he holds that position, and he's willing to take on that burden of proof and defend it, and that's fine. That's his freedom. That's his choice. I don't have a problem with people doing that. What I have a problem with is when other people try to impose a burden on people such as myself who don't who don't hold this position.
Absolutely so. And so as Soap was saying there, Steve uses the same notation that he's criticizing you for in all of his arguments, right? So why is he criticizing you? Because he's a hypocrite, obviously. That's the only conclusion we can draw from this. If he's going to say, no, that belief B does not equal belief, and then he uses that belief B to mean belief in his own arguments, it shows a real lack of understanding. That's all.
In retrospect, I'm glad I didn't use small letter b, because that might have been another point of critique there.
Oh my God, really?
Maybe. Did you use a full stop there? No, you didn't. That's all right then. Okay, well done. Okay, so
I tried to get that right.
I think I don't have a note for this, but I'm pretty sure this is where he hasn't real. So if you're like me or Simon, right? Because we use slightly different terms than you do, but they generally match. So me and Simon, what you have is anti-theism. Me and Simon would call hard atheism, which I don't think a lot of people would. And what you have is atheism, a lot of people would call soft atheism.
I do put a note there, by the way, about anti-theism.
Yeah. Well, that's a second thing after this. Steve is reading soft atheism just for the people out there, he's reading soft atheism, a definition for it, and he's acting as if it's the definition for hard atheism. He hasn't realized that you haven't listed hard atheism above soft atheism.
Yeah, I mean, it's failure to actually read the document properly and to fully understand. He's seeming like he's doing that. He's seeming like he's an expert talking about it, but clearly he hasn't got it. And not only that, clearly he didn't read the line in small print underneath where you make the distinction that some people, well, I won't read it out now, but some people use anti-theism to mean anti-religious. Right, and that's how I use it myself. But that doesn't distract from your particular paper using it your particular way, right? Which means it's correct because you've defined it that way.
Yeah,
so,
you can find it right there, right underneath of it, right in his eyes.
Yeah, and he's still saying it's wrong. So
the important thing about these terms in this document is that they apply to this document explaining these concepts. It's not meant to be something that B is always meaning belief everywhere you go and things like that. So it's just, it's all specifically within the context of this. Now, there is one thing I recall from him covering this is he said there's no propositions, and then he scrolls right past the propositions later and ignores it.
Right? Yeah. I don't think we took note of that because I do remember saying that, or I think Simon said it when we watched it the first night. He gets just far enough down where you can see propositions on the page, and then he just flips to the next page.
I laughed at that one. I couldn't help myself.
I mean, literally the statements you make in there, in quotation marks, are propositions. So the fact that he thinks that you're not addressing them is just laughable. And also, belief is a psychological state. I mean, whichever way you look at it, right? Whether you can draw a proposition from it or not, they're all psychological states because that's what you believe, right? That's what the word psychological means.
I would very much like it if he would be willing to consider these things instead of just going at them with an angry tone and whatnot. Because most people, I think, will consider new ideas, are kind of open to that. I feel like he's been kind of stuck in this rut for a long time. And every time he sees something that doesn't fall in line with his view of it, he just responds with anger and hostility. And I think it's a shame because he cuts himself out of a lot of really high quality dialogue by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, again, what I find, that's all fine. It's up to him to do that or not do that. And I think he's beyond the pale personally. I think I've tried to explain that particular point to him several times, and he calls me an idiot and a moron as a result. But am I bothered? I'm not bothered, actually. But nonetheless, I think it's interesting that he is trying to do. It seems like the tone from his voice seems like he's trying to do an internal critique of your position, and all I ever hear through this entire video is external critiques. If my definition were right, then Randolph would be wrong. That is irrelevant. It's completely irrelevant to reading this page and finding some logical contradiction on the page, which I don't think you can find. Serb and I went through it. I don't think there is one there.
This painting has been improved since his first video, and it was improved before his first video. I wrote most of this. Some bits and pieces were contributed by others, but it's mostly me, and I take responsibility for it. This whole website is a work in progress, so there may be more improvements in the future, and because I just want to make sure it's the highest quality thing that I can make, and so this takes work, this takes effort, this takes considering feedback and critique from others as well, because that is really valuable. If somebody is willing to put a critique, no matter how happy or angry they are about it, doesn't matter to me. I'll put that part aside.
Sorry, Randolph. Sorry, are you saying that when somebody critiques you, you don't block them?
No.
You don't block them?
I don't want to block them.
Wow.
I currently block.
Steve,
on Twitter, I currently block about 7 or 8 people for being quite toxic. It took Steve a very long time to reach that bar. I don't like blocking people, but I just finally had enough because it just got to be to the point where it was too much. And, hopefully I can lift that block at some point in the future. But for now, it's made things a lot less toxic for me to use Twitter, because the last few days before blocking him, it was just one angry thing after another, filled with false accusations. And
I saw that. It was disgusting. They're horrible trolls. It's probably Steve's trolls.
Yeah, I mean, here we are 5 years in, and all I've ever seen Steve do is block people that criticize him and never really take it seriously. So the contrast couldn't be more obvious as far as I'm concerned. Okay, should we move on?
Yeah.
Prescriptively. Okay. He's not describing the usage in how you would find this in academia. He is prescriptively saying it's something else. No, be in a logic is not a psychological belief. It is.
Sorry, why is academia relevant here? I'm talking about atheism. I'm not talking about academia.
Exactly. Let me just go back because this bit's quite important.
Academia. He is prescriptively saying it's something else. No, be in a logic is not a psychological belief. It is the assertion or the disposition, the epistemic disposition, that the proposition is true. It is not psychological. It is
not
propositional. And he doesn't understand that.
Not in this document, it's not.
Yeah, you're correct on that. I mean, well, remember this: if he actually understood logic, he wouldn't be a atheist.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's putting this out as if like informative, like, oh, I'm explaining logic to you. He's not saying, hey, this is how I use these things. And if you want to have stipulated logic, go ahead.
He's completely wrong on both those points. I'm explaining how it's used in this document. I'm not doing. He got both those points wrong. He reversed them around.
Yeah, exactly. Again, he claims he's doing an internal critique, or it seems like he's trying to do an internal critique, and yet here he is giving an external critique of your position once again.
This document does not explain how logic works. This document is using logic to explain these concepts.
Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that, because it makes the point that he's making a big deal about nothing in this, really. Yeah. He's just trying too hard.
Okay. Moving on.
This is fascinating to me. Thank you guys for going over it.
I'm finding it interesting too.
Wait, where are we at?
This is 2815, I hope. I'm going to start from 14.
Exploration. The particular words of interest are atheism, anti-theism, theism, all which pertain to the psychological state of belief. No, that is not what they do. Matter of fact, atheism and theism are generally not held as psychological states. Can you treat them as such? Yes.
Pause right there.
Which is what I'm doing.
That is not what they do, but it is what they do.
Yeah.
That's what you just did.
Oh my god! It's just too good. Let me just play that again.
The particular words of interest are atheism, anti-theism, theism, all which pertain to the psychological state of belief. No, that is not what they do. Matter of fact, atheism and theism are generally not held as psychological states. Can you treat them as such? Yes. The belief would be a psychological state of atheism.
Right there. Sorry.
This is germane to his misstep in logic to hobble atheism by taking off the base fundamental of not believing deities, and then inappropriately put it into the epistemic classification of agnosticism, and then basically, as I said, like with Ghostbusters, they said don't cross the streams. Here he's crossing the categories. Classifications. Don't cross the classifications. So, that's a category error.
So real quick, right here, right before we paused, Steve accidentally agrees with you.
Yeah. So he's gonna say you're wrong, and then he's going to say, but your possession is correct. Okay, so let's just listen out for this.
It says a lot.
The belief. No, that is not what they do. Matter of fact, atheism and theism are generally not held as psychological states. Can you treat them as such? Yes. A lack belief would be a psychological state.
Well, you paused it just a smidgen too soon, because he says of an atheist.
Atheism.
Of atheism.
Of atheism. Okay. So he's saying
I will say this. I gladly accept his concession.
That
you
is
for-
magnanimous. Thank you.
Yeah.
So let me
Generally
just.
not held as psychological states. Can you treat them as such? Yes. A lack belief would be a psychological state of atheism.
There we go. So thank you very much for agreeing with Randolph.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. Gee.
It's kind of you to
You guys are
finally do
sharp.
that after all
You
the
guys-
insults.
You guys are sharp to catch that.
That's not it by the half of it. But anyway, just to say, I wanted to get that out there early that Steve, in fact, in this video does agree that Randolph is correct.
Actual literature, the not symbol represents the negation of the proposition, not of the predication. So it doesn't negate belief, it negates the proposition.
Do you want to just mention something on that?
Yeah,
Well, I've got that we play to 50 here, so there's quite a few things.
yeah. So I wanted to bring up some, like, in logic. Right, you already said that this is not necessarily the negation. This is just the not in your notation. But Steve uses negation in two ways, one of which is super inappropriate and actually doesn't match what he just said is supposed to be done with it. So negation means false, right? This thing that follows after the negation is false.
Which is the same as not accepting the proposition.
Yeah. Steve uses negation in front of a belief to mean without. Not that the belief is false. He just says without the belief. So Steve doesn't even use the notation correctly.
Okay, moving on.
Because if it negated the proposition, it wouldn't be I don't believe in deities. It'd be I don't believe in deities. It'd be I believe deities are false. So,
No.
What difference
I
does it
guess
make, really? Seriously.
if it negated the disposition, I guess it would be I don't believe. But that's not how.
Yeah, right? He's
There it is
struggling
again.
right there. He's struggling right there. You're wrong for using it like this, which, by the way, you're using the not symbol, not the negation symbol. And then he says, no, I guess it would be that. So you're wrong, but you're right.
Yeah, you're wrong, except that is how it's used. Apart from that, you're wrong.
That's why he calls his show The Cesspool, everybody.
He's in the cesspool.
It works that if you have the a prefix, it is saying that if God exists, if the proposition is God exists, then the negation of that is God does not exist.
Okay, so again, that's really begging the question, because he's saying if it's a proposition, that's an external critique of Randolph's page. Randolph is not saying that his position is that necessarily of denying the proposition, right? He's saying that he has a psychological position on the proposition, right? And that's completely different. So yeah, if you're gonna like poison the well by saying, oh well, if you did have a proposition if you did affirm the proposition, then you'd be wrong. Yeah, that's why I'm the hard atheist and Randolph's not. Okay, there's a difference. We're still both atheists, so we still neither of us believe in God. Anyway, moving on.
And that's what you believe. So this is just foobar. I mean,
It's just
every time I've ever shown this to anybody that has any experience with logic, they never
I
thought.
prefer chocolate bars.
Oh my word! I love that stuff. Okay, so then we're going to go on to 38.
Yep.
So another 8 minutes on. I mean, there's too much to listen to, which is funny, and we've got notes on a lot more than this. All right, but nonetheless, let's go further.
Of using one for the other. But my argument has always been this: look, if you want to use the terms that way you want to use them, show why there's a benefit to do so, and how it doesn't lead to things like absurdities or category error or.
Yeah, and let me just say, he's saying
what's absurd about not believing something?
well, he's saying show how it's done, and yet on his page you have purpose. Right, you are literally telling him your purpose for defining it this way on the page when he's saying, yeah, well, why don't you just show me how it's done? Well, I don't know. Why don't you read the page and find out?
Also,
So,
on a point,
Brilliant
it's
idea.
really conceited, right? He's saying, if you just take him at just what he said right there, He's saying that if you disagree with him, you should show that the way in which you disagree with him is perfectly logical. Right? You have to literally pass his test. Otherwise, he thinks you're doing something wrong. How dare you use a word differently that he already admits has multiple meanings?
Look, he was one credit away from getting his degree. You should respect him.
I was just going to say, this is why he can't get through college, because he can't understand there's a purpose to a paper. There's an opening paragraph. Then there's the body. There's these basic
There's a need to follow through and hard work.
And there's not just Steve's opinions. There's more to it than that.
I'd actually like a citation on the fact that he thinks he's one accreditation away from a degree, because I think that's bullshit. So yeah, citation needed, please.
We would all love a citation on that, Steve.
Yes, indeed.
Or in my argument for my semantic collapse argument, not one person has shown me how it doesn't lead to semantic collapse. Now, granted, that is my term. I mean, you're not going to go find a paper on semantic collapse.
Semantic collapse.
Yeah, that's his argument.
So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, this isn't so much. We're going to get into critiquing this later, but I kind of want to give a brief explanation of what it is, because it seems like so many people don't know what it is, and Steve's constantly talking about it. So he has the positions of what most people would identify as hard atheist and hard theist and soft atheist and soft theist in a logical square of opposition. Right. And he does the logic correctly, right, on them, except for using the negation wrong. But you can kind of forgive him for that. You can understand what he's saying anyway. Except for he jammed something in the middle at the bottom of the square, agnostic, which actually is not how you're supposed to use the square. The corners of the square does not imply anything about any sort of imagined middle position. I don't know if you want to show the square, but keep that in mind.
You'll need to show the square because I'm sharing this screen.
Okay.
So if you want to do that, that's fine.
See, that one of the things, like with the negation stuff, like I notice he'll assume that if you're not saying the proposition is true, you're not accepting it, then you're saying it's false, and he misunderstands that as meaning that you're taking an opposite position. There are people who do that. I find this quite common with the Christian apologists and some Muslim apologists in the conversations I've had with them. And the thing is, the proposition is only asking you if something's true. If you're not accepting it, you're indicating it's false. The default is to not accept the proposition. So it's not true. It's false. That doesn't mean you're taking an opposite position. Because I could present to you, for example, scissors is the winner in a children's game of rock, paper, scissors. If you don't accept that proposition, and you say it's false, that doesn't mean you're saying that rock and paper are the winner. For that, we need to present two more propositions. So for the proposition that just has only one option, that is dichotomous, you need to still present another proposition. Like I could ask you, do you believe in the Marklar, on planet Marklar, being real? If you answer, you accept the proposition, then yeah, you believe in them. If you don't have, you could have all kinds of reasons. You haven't heard of the Marklar. It's a South Park reference. Or you know that it's a cartoon and you don't accept it. You could say, yeah, I don't accept that proposition. That proposition's false to me. If I want to know that whether you actually know what the Marklar are or not, I need to investigate further with more propositions. That's what it boils down to. Okay. So, and then this is where he goes wrong, is he's trying to use the propositions in a greedy way to say, well, false implies something else, and he's reading too much into the implication and saying it means the complete opposite when that doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's another problem with his misunderstanding of propositional logic, I think.
So, if you want to share my screen real quick, I have it set up. I can't put it on screen. The host has to do that.
Excellent.
Okay, what I'm having let me see if I can get it up here. Hold on a second. I have to take yours down, Simos. So
Yep.
Yeah.
all right.
There we go. We're making progress here.
Yeah,
Exile
sorry.
taketh and giveth.
How do I find it now? Okay, so Simos phone.
You should be down there next to Serb.
You're doing great.
It's actually like hidden. Hold on a second. There we go. Okay, I found it.
There you go. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Oh my God. It's not actually as zoomed in as it is on my screen, but
Oh my gosh.
Let me just do that first because actually, hang on a minute. I'm gonna need something a little fucking stronger for this.
Oh my god!
Yeah, I know. I know.
All right.
The word
Get through it.
agnosticism doesn't fit here.
well, yeah. Well, I mean, well, we'll get it. There's a bunch of criticisms that I want to get into, but basically, I don't know if you can see my mouse here. I don't know how well the audience can see it.
Your mouse is showing up.
Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to explain all of this, but basically, this square shows you how to deduce or induct. I don't know what really the proper term for this is, but it lets you figure out all the possible positions. Right. It tells you what's contradictory to something else and what's like a necessity of something.
Yeah.
And it's only for the corners. Steve has agnostic down there, not supposed to be there. The square can't actually tell you anything about it. You have to imply that it tells you something about it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
wrong.
It sort of squeezes
What
it
he's
in
done
down
here
there.
is wrong.
Why would you do that, Steve? I'm confused.
Well, he read a paper, and I forget. He has a guy quoted that I looked at down at the bottom that published a paper. And, the square of opposition is useful. Right? Except for you run into issues like up here in the top right where he has atheism in both positions. But the top right, that belief, which by the way, he says atheism isn't a belief, but that belief right there implies the bottom left. Now, he would identify the top right as atheism or maybe hard atheism, and he outright defines the bottom right as soft atheism down below in the paper. But the issue is, because you're using the square to work out the notation, the top right actually isn't hard atheism, because hard atheism requires both positions on the right side.
Okay. Any questions? I'm a little confused. Yeah. Hold on a second.
You there, Seb?
Yeah. You just said, hold on a second.
No, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm just like, there's
I'm going to say
atheism, theism. Right?
So, I mean,
the B means belief. The G is a god or goddess, I guess. The S is what?
Well, okay, no, see,
it doesn't matter. Believes, plural, I think.
So first off,
really?
So I guess second off, the G in here is a proposition. It doesn't just stand for God, right? Because he wants it to be a proposition. This is supposed to be a critique of the people that want to make it a belief statement.
Okay.
But that's another mistake he makes. So he has it as a proposition.
Yeah. So I'm intending, or I'm thinking, that by agnostic he means anything on the bottom. Is that right? What he would like to say.
Well, no, because this whole argument is that the bottom two can't be theism and atheism because agnostic holds both of those positions at the same time.
Yeah.
Therefore, he says, therefore, semantically, all the terms collapse, right? Because then you have agnostic being a theist atheist.
Okay.
That's just nonsense, though, isn't it?
Well, it is just nonsense because agnostic, while this is super oversimplified, there's a bunch of propositions and positions and beliefs that are left out of this that these positions actually hold to that help distinguish them from each other. He leaves most of that out. But if you just assume Steve's right and agnostic means the bottom two combined, it's still a distinct position because neither other position down at the bottom are both, right? So theism is just one statement, atheism is the other statement, and agnostic is both statements at the same time, which means they're distinct. You can tell them apart. The people that are those positions they're not confused, right? They disagree and agree on things. They're not in the same group. Steve's conclusion does not follow from his argument.
Yeah. I mean, we can test that, actually, because we've got Randolph here. Randolph,
Okay.
would you agree with this statement? Would you agree with this statement?
Okay.
I do not believe that no gods exist.
I do not believe the statement that no gods exist. Yeah.
Wait,
that's true.
Hang on a minute. You do not believe, right? Careful with the language here. You do not believe that no gods exist.
Right. I that's correct. I'm being very clear here.
Oh, okay. Right. Just check it.
I don't believe gods do exist, and I don't believe gods don't exist. So that statement rings true for me.
Right. So would you say? Oh dear. Okay.
Yeah.
Under Steve's definition, not taking into account the knowledge claim. All right.
Oh no, I'm just talking belief because you're asking me about belief.
Yeah, I'm trying to be about belief, right? And
I hope I didn't mess things up for you there. I wasn't.
Yeah, you kind of did. You kind of did, really, because I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that you wouldn't count yourself a theist, right?
Oh, I'm not a theist. I don't believe that deities do exist.
Right. Okay. So you don't believe that? Am I saying this right, sir?
Yeah, I think you are saying it wrong. So,
oh, good.
What he has as a hard atheism is, I believe no gods exist. Right?
I don't believe that.
Okay,
I don't hold that position. I don't hold that position. Yeah.
Right? You don't, because you hold the lower. You hold the lower position. You don't believe.
I don't believe. That's as far as I go with it. Yeah. I can tell you why I don't hold that position. Is that there are no deities is because for me the bar would include having to rule it out of every part of our universe and cosmos. And at present, I don't have the tools to do that, so I'm unable to satisfy that claim.
Okay, but it's not that you're absent that belief; it's that you don't think that belief could be shown to be true.
I couldn't show it to be true. I'm not saying that it couldn't be shown to be true. That's a different claim.
And there's the difference. But as soon as you add in no ability and all the other things people know what agnosticism is about, it doesn't matter anymore, right? This paper doesn't. Yeah, that's another problem with the paper.
And I'm using epistemology to justify why I don't hold the belief that there are no deities.
But the way this paper has agnosticism defined, or agnostic defined, is just as a lacks of beliefs.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the consequences of just defining something as lacking beliefs is it includes things like rocks.
Right.
Rocks don't have anything to have a belief; they lack beliefs. And
that would be implicit, but that is correct.
Yeah. And then there's things like
what I'm really talking about is explicit. So. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying this things that, because Steve is being purposely ambiguous.
Yeah.
And how he's allowing information to describe these words, there's a bunch of mistakes that come into play. So, like, people that lack the beliefs, these two beliefs, could also be people that are unaware of the proposition that there's a God.
That's correct.
Completely unaware.
And that's atheism in my view. Yep.
Well, no, because you're aware of the proposition.
Awareness of the proposition is not necessary to not hold a belief in something.
Well, exactly, but that's my point. The way he has agnostic defined, it would include people like toddlers that don't even know the proposition exists.
Yeah. And for this paper, if he wants to define it that way in the context of this document, he's free to do that. It's a confusing way to use the language, but that's up to him, I guess.
And keep in mind that this is what he's doing here is supposed to be an internal critique of someone else.
Okay.
and he's not defining the terms the way in which those other people use it.
Well,
Yeah,
that's a problem. That's a problem. And
Yeah, and that's why my question fails, right? Because when you do that internal critique, it turns out your position, right, is not such is that you do not believe gods exist, and not that you do not believe that no gods exist, right? Because if you believed otherwise, you couldn't hold the position singularly that you believe that gods do not exist. Right? I mean, those two things must be exclusive under Steve's definition, right? Because agnostics are defined as somebody who believes both, and that's what I mean to say.
I'm getting the impression here that this document is making things unnecessarily complicated.
Of course. How did you guess that? I mean, I'm not.
Because
and again,
glad somebody else thinks the
and
same.
again, I mean, I don't want to straw man your position at all, right? And so, I'm sorry if it comes across that way.
No, it doesn't.
It's just that if we're going to describe atheism this way, then logically we would have to describe theism the other way, right? And that's the issue, really.
Because the
right?
alpha privative. Because the alpha privative. Yes.
Well, yeah, that might be the case.
Can I interject really quick? He's got
Go
some
ahead.
weird ideas about atheist or theism too. Like,
It
Oh yeah.
seems strange, yes, but it
Yeah.
seems more understandable with theism, right? Theism, anybody who does not believe, who believes that no gods exist, or does not believe. Hang on a minute, is that right? Anybody who believes
Does not
that no
believe
gods
that no gods
exist,
exist.
yeah, does not believe that no gods exist, are going to be called a theist, right? Because by definition, they hold the position only that, and they don't hold the position that they don't believe gods exist, right? They definitely can only be theists, and that's the point about this particular diagram, which I understood, and which is why agnosticism can only be described as people who do not believe gods exist, and at the same time hold the position that they don't believe that gods do not exist.
You know what I think
ahead.
a whole separate video could be made about this document.
Quite possibly. Serb's actually much better at explaining it than me. And for the life of me, I find it extremely confusing to use the terms in this way. All right. Whereas it seems to me much simpler.
By a
Say again?
mathematician. It was reviewed by a mathematician. It has to be right.
Yeah.
Oh,
I gave it a good college try, and I'm not talking about academic college either. I didn't need to go that far.
Yeah, fair enough. Serb, do you want to just finish up and try and rescue me from the mistake I've made?
Well, I mean, this is the last thing I want to say, because this has been my very first critique of Steve. Steve goes and he reads a paper, right, and he collects essentially what is in philosophical Lego blocks, right? He gets all these little terms, and he in a vacuum, I think he understands them. He kind of sort of knows what they are, but he doesn't actually know how to put them together into anything. So he gets all this terminology together and builds an amorphous blob of philosophical Legos. And because of that, there's a bunch of flaws in it. But so few people know all the terminology that they can't critique it. He's hiding a bunch of mistakes in here and a bunch of ambiguity in here, but almost no one can tear it apart, because he's doing it in such a way that's super convoluted and uses a bunch of terminology that no one uses, and uses things like the square of opposition, which is a well-established philosophical thing, but no one in here had heard of it.
Now, do you think he's hiding those things on purpose, or do you think it's just because of misunderstanding that that ends up being the result?
Well, in this, I think it's on purpose. I believe he knows that in order for someone to be an agnostic, keep in mind he has agnostic here, not agnosticism. In order for someone to be an agnostic, they have to have some sort of belief about, is the proposition knowable to be true or false? Right? And if he included that, which he did. I think Simon brought it up to me. He had it mistakenly included in his WASP argument. He had a diagram that showed his mistake, and everyone took the piss out of him for it. He's left the mistake here, but he's done it in such a way that there's no way that you deliberately see the mistake.
Okay.
Yeah,
Poor Steve. I feel sorry for him.
It does, to be fair, it does say that this is a work in progress.
Yeah, but well, let's close this and get to the next point, because there's more to say about this based on what Steve said later.
Okay.
Okay, if you want to share back the screen.
All right, let me remove this.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I completely forgot, of course, that I'm embedded into this particular way of thinking. All right. And so when I asked you the question, I was expecting you to answer from the position which I was thinking about, not from your own position, which includes this definition of knowledge being agnostic, right?
Yeah,
so I do apologize about that. And I'm sure I'll get lambasted for it later.
It's okay. I found it interesting, and maybe we can try again at another time when we're clear.
Yeah, we definitely should
The
do.
problem is it's coming from a document that's very confusing, and I think that's where the source of the problem is. It's just the way.
For sure. For sure. Okay, moving on then. Let me just see. Right, this one is 4456.
Oh, where did he make? I always tell people, look, if I have an error in my blog, I'll fix it. People know this. I've had people even still to this day, hey, I think you made an error. Most of them are typo grammatical, and that's fine. I respect that just as much, But as far as like any kind of informational, it's rare, but it happens. They're like, I think you mean this, or did you mess up here? And I'm like, I have to think about it. I'm like, okay, let me word it differently.
Yeah. So
go ahead, Seb.
This logic that Steve's using for his two most recent arguments is pretty much spot on with the same logic he was using years ago. I've corrected Steve multiple times. Wherever I correct Steve, if I correct Steve, he doesn't address it. He doesn't address me. He doesn't explain why my criticism is wrong. He just deletes it and pretends like it never happens.
Yep.
So no one sees it.
Yep.
And if I repost it, he blocks me, so no one can see it.
Yeah.
I can confirm a witness to that. That's exactly what happens.
Literally, right after he posted the systematic collapse argument that he has, I guess Cheshire convinced him to come on Discord and start a live stream and basically take criticism, take questions live.
She did.
Yeah. He said, anyone's welcome. Anyone come in. Someone sent me the link. I was watching. I'm like, okay, sure. Anyone's welcome. I'll come in. And I was like, hey, Steve, it's me. And he doesn't say, oh, hey. Oh, he doesn't say, you're a troll, get out. He doesn't say, I don't want to talk to you. He just kicks me. Because he knows that I am there to actually criticize him.
Weak.
So,
in a way that he doesn't like.
Yeah, and people in the side chat were pointing out that, Steve said, Steve, you said anyone could come in and critique you. And it basically, as long as that's what they're doing, what's the problem? No one understood why he did it. And Steve's like, fine, well, anyone that I kick out of the room can come on the forum and post their critique there. So that's exactly what I did. I went through my notes that I made. I sort of shortened it all down to a couple paragraphs, and I put it on the forum post underneath his argument. 10 minutes later, he deleted it.
10 minutes later.
Are you ever going to
Because
address
Serb
Serb's criticism?
is a malicious troll, and so is Nate Brody.
Yeah,
Oh, my
right.
God.
And funnily enough, I mean, Steve's saying, yeah, I'll take correction. I take it very seriously. It's grammar. It's just grammar. It's just wording. That's exactly what Matt Slick said about Alex Malpass's critique of his tag argument. What actually was said, and what Serb actually said, is this argument has been refuted. It is dead. Do not use it anymore. And that, according to Slick, was just a wording issue. And that's exactly the same excuse Steve's using here. Right? Yes, I've been corrected, but it's just wording. That's nonsense, right? No, you have been corrected multiple times in multiple different formats by many people, not just Serb, but other people as well, but especially Serb, as we're getting testimony to here,
Yeah.
and those no longer exist. So that's interesting. Interesting.
It's his
Okay, so
thinking, not his wording.
yeah, just that's the excuse they give. I mean, it's just nonsense. Okay, so 47. Oh yeah, this is one of mine, which I picked up on, which I really dislike. But nonetheless, it just goes to show people that do fact checking don't fact check.
All right, so let's go. While he's answering that, go to the philosophical perspectives here.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is he brings up philosophers and all that stuff, and please note the first person he's bringing up here, Christopher Hitchens. Christopher Hitchens, while he was a great man of rhetoric, I loved his
agreed.
His rhetorical skills. He wasn't a philosopher.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to just kick this one to the dust pretty quick. Christopher Hitchens actually had a degree in philosophy, politics, and economics from Balliol College, Oxford University, one of the premier colleges at Oxford. Oxford being one of the premier colleges in the UK and the world. So no, I actually disagree. If you're going to say he knew nothing about philosophy, I think he was more highly educated than the two of you put together. Or individually, of course, as well. So I believe one of his tutors was a guy called Anthony Kenny, who was a renowned philosopher in his own right. So this is just a case of someone not bothering to fact check before spouting just like memes that they've heard on the internet. So just crazy stuff. Hitchens had a degree.
And not only did Christopher Hitchens have those academic credentials necessary, I guess, minimally necessary for this, he also raised many philosophical points and questions in the debates and conversations he had with people. So it wasn't like he just got the credential and then didn't do any philosophy. He was partaking in it and bringing it up in debates, bringing up issues of ethics and other things which are very commonly discussed in philosophy. So I think he's also practicing when he was alive. So I don't think that it's necessary for someone to have a degree, even to be a philosopher, if they're able to raise the issues. You see this with many science fiction authors. They bring in all kinds of philosophical points, but a degree certainly helps a lot.
Especially from Oxford. Go ahead.
I want to point out, I don't know if does anyone in the room know who Carneades is, the Greek philosopher? Mm-hmm. Supposedly, probably one of the best orators and arguers of all time. He was renowned for being able to one day get in front of a crowd and argue one side of the argument and convince everybody, and then come out the next day and give the other side and change everyone's mind. Right? And not only that, I mean, that's the kind of thing that Plato and Aristotle did. Right? You got up in front of a crowd, you had arguments, you orated, you spoke to people, fleshed out the philosophical points. That's exactly what Hitchens did.
Yeah, and I just want to point out that the next philosopher I list in this page that you have up with Christopher Hitchens' name on there is Anthony Flew, who is a well-recognized philosopher and well-respected too, as far as I know. That's one that, unfortunately, Steve criticizes quite heavily on sometimes, which I don't agree with his critiques of Flew, but that's just dissenting views.
Also, I mean, Hitchens has a razor named after him.
Oh yeah, so
come on.
He's well recognized in philosophy. Then, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, just moving on to the next one, which is going to be 5701, I think.
But this tactic that they use, like he says that the theists are trying to, like I've said before, they're trying to vilify atheists by getting them to use the academic definition. And I said, they're trying to shift the burden of proof onto atheists. And I'd like to point out, no, that's not what theists are doing. They are trying to share the burden of proof with them.
Stop, please. So, there are some theists who do this. Most don't, in my experience, but there are some who do. And the way he's wording it makes it sound like we're saying that all theists are doing this. So that's just a fine point. But they want to share the burden of proof, but we're not making a claim, so there's no burden of proof to share. So it's ridiculous. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say no, that's flatly false, and especially it's flatly false in our community. I'm thinking of people like DD, right? That's one of his main tactics. Duncan disorderly.
Darth Dawkins.
Yeah,
That's the one. I mean, he's functionally a burden shifter. That's what he basically is in the terms of his oratory skills.
That's been my experience with him too. I've talked with him a few times. Yeah,
exactly. And obviously, Greg Bunsen actually says the thing you do is shift the burden. That's one of his tactics for debating. Okay, so they get it from a good source, right? How many others do we want to name? I mean, this is the point. Beckle, G-Man, Netflin. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, literally, any notorious theist in the community have been around a while. Their name, Antangelo. Their name is synonymous with shifting burden.
Otangelo Grasso. Oh yeah.
I gotta tell you, like in apologist classes and things like that we would take, like I used to be in an outreach ministry for 15 years in church. We were taught to burden shift. So like I've been on like STSU's campus, and when I'm asking questions, we are taught in like kind of like street epistemology, like that atheist guy that does that. We're taught to do that. Like it actually is intentional. Even if you're not philosophically trained, they teach you to do that. And so like I used to be like, oh, you're an atheist. I said, and I would get them to basically Ben Stein themselves. Are you willing to assign a percentage of how certain you are of your unbelief? And if they could get to like an 80, I would shift it to like, that sounds like a positive claim, and I would go from there.
Yeah, and that's sophistry there, because it's a dichotomy. Either you believe or you don't believe. That's yeah.
Okay, so just to point that out, he says they're not shifting, they're sharing. Yeah, because let's face it, they're all sharing, caring people, aren't they?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's
anyway,
love.
Yeah, they do it because they love you. Yeah. Okay, so moving on, 58, 55.
I can do that.
Yes.
I know a lot of atheist arguments. They're really good. I'd like to see them argue against those arguments.
Serb.
Okay.
Well,
Steve knows a lot of atheist arguments that are really good.
Right. So my question to Steve after hearing this, the first thing that popped into my head was, I've never heard Steve say there's good theist arguments, or at least say a theist argument that he thought was good. So my question to Steve is, are there theist arguments you think are really good? And if not, why are you an agnostic?
And could you please Twitter them? Just give me a couple of Twitters for your best theist arguments, which are as good as the really good atheist arguments that you've heard. And if not, if you can't do that, then why the hell are you agnostic? I mean, it's just nonsense, isn't it?
Keep playing it because it gets better and it deals with this more.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, and here's what's funny is like they're so low IQ that they don't realize that you're actually trying to help atheists.
Always trying to help atheists. That's why the best atheists out there, I think, are the ones that have listened to me over the years and gotten better
So
at these
low
things.
IQ.
There you go. Pause it a second.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to elevate the discussion and you're trying to really get at the truth.
This is why people say I'm a cult leader, isn't it?
Yeah.
Elevate the discussion with Mr. Brass. Good job.
So not only are the arguments atheists makes as good, he's constantly helping you.
IQ is kind of irrelevant because it measures a specific subset of a person's intelligence. It's not an overall intelligence test. So there can be somebody could be very good at logic and not be good at pattern matching, and then score below average on the IQ test, and still be able to do very well with the logic section. You know, it's not a really good gauge to use, I think, especially in philosophy.
How many
Yeah,
how
I
many
don't-
folks do we know that are excellent at math, for instance, and horrible at interpersonal relations and external relations? Like,
Yeah, that's a good example.
But at the very, so I mean, well,
Yep,
so
there's a little bit more to play.
well, that's the end of that part. But so he helps atheists. He thinks he thinks like they have a ton of good arguments. He never talks about how good theist arguments are. If you ask him to give notation for his position, it's basically soft atheism. Steve's an atheist. He just hates the word.
Mhm.
It's like it's some kind of psychosomatic allergy or something. To the word.
At the end there, he talks about people calling him a cult leader, and I don't think he is, but the behavior of removing anyone that can challenge me from the community of people I'm trying to build is exactly what a cult leader does.
well, and it goes beyond that, sir. Like the massive block list that included people like Dr. Misha and Shannon Q and Paula Logia, like
And me.
you, Bill Ludlow. I understand me because I was an asshole to Steve on purpose, right? I understand that, but like there are people that were not, and they just they have imposing beliefs or a different viewpoint, and they had to be, on the axe, and that's what's crazy to me is like they actually what blows my mind is there's this skeptic community that follows him, right? A lot of atheists, a lot of agnostics, and they can listen to him say, do not go to those people's channels, which is bizarre. Like, I would be like all about it. Like, check out who you want, figure it out for yourself. It's
That's-
really weird.
That's not the great debate community anymore. It's over if it is. That's not what we do. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Could you possibly share the message I've just sent you in Discord?
So yeah, maybe here. Let's see.
Just to show that I had a debate with Steve many years ago, not many years ago, a few years ago, and he was very gracious in that he decided to type in side chat his position, which is temporal agnosticism, and in the process, somebody questioned what that might be, and Steve, as I say, was gracious to type into side chat exactly what his position was. So if you could share that.
There it is. I got it up, but you have to get it on screen. I hope it's not blurry because it is small.
It is small, yes, I'm afraid, but I will
Might be
read
able
it.
to zoom in.
So Steve's position is temporal agnosticism, and he says, Steve McRae himself says, temporal agnosticism is soft atheism. Okay, so just to point out, when we say, Steve is functionally an atheist, yeah, we actually mean this, right?
Oh my
He
God.
himself thinks he is functionally an atheist in his own words.
Oh my
So
God.
I don't think we're straw manning him.
Evidence.
What is temporal agnosticism? Is it agnosticism only at a certain time?
Yeah, I believe it's. He believes that
it's.
Go ahead.
You want to do it? So it's the statement that it's unknowable, right? Whether the proposition that there is a God is true, but may for some reason become knowable in the future.
Yeah, I think you actually covered it on your page as one of the positions of agnosticism, which I was very impressed with, I can assure you. So was that under logic? It probably was. So you say on your page, where is it? I don't know. Oh yeah. Okay. So agnosticism, especially rooted in skepticism, wherein it may also be characterized by the proposition it's not presently possible to know whether deities exist. That's temporal agnosticism. And Steve himself calls that soft atheism, as I demonstrated there. So we're not just straw manning the hell out of it. We actually are using his own words to demonstrate the point that functionally it's the same thing given given the understanding that Randolph has about the definitions which he stated. So,
Yeah,
and Steve agrees with that.
Yeah, certain so people know the counterpoint to that is permanent agnostic, which is what I am to the majority of gods we tend to debate about, and that is for essentially for logical reasons. It is unknowable for forever. There is no logical way in which you could know if the proposition is true or not. Yeah, I could be wrong, right? So, right, I could be a complete idiot over here. I just don't see how it's possible. So I'm a permanent agnostic.
That's fine. Still a good friend, Stove. Still a good friend. I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm the only one, and I would just add, as the hard atheist, I'm the only one that's made a big mistake tonight. So, you know, there you go.
It was from a confusing document. It's not your fault.
Yeah. Well, there we go. Anyway, moving on to the last point. I think this is the last point. So we'll just see what it says.
So Anthony Flew, though, in his paper, which I noticed seems to be conspicuously missing from this thing here. Anthony Flew in that same paper, because you know why? I've read it more than once. Quote, whereas nowadays the usual meaning of atheist in English is someone who asserts that there is no being as God. I want the word to be understood not positively, but negatively. And he doesn't mean like...
Am I in the right place here?
Yeah.
Why does he think I need to include a whole paper in here of somebody else?
It's like 59:43 to like 100 and...
Oh no, we're in the right. I'm in the wrong place. Let me just 59:09. Is it 59:09 to 59:30? Or have we already done that?
Yeah, we did. We went past.
Oh, we did that. So it's 59:43. Okay, let me just go back to that. 59:43 to 10:36.
So
okay.
Anthony Flew, though, in his paper, which I noticed seems to be conspicuously missing from this thing here. Anthony Flew in that same paper, because you know why? I've read it more than once. Quote, whereas nowadays the usual meaning of atheist in English is
I've read Sesame Street book.
That there is no being as God. I want the word to be understood not positively, but negatively. And he doesn't mean like negative as in connotations. He wants to be the negative as in to be I do not believe rather than I believe God does not exist. He wants to take it as the what's called a subalteration. So if you have I believe if I believes P, then the subalteration is I do not believe not P. If you have believes not P, the subalteration is does not believe P. So if you look on the square of opposition, which again is my semantic collapse argument. So he very
So
yeah, what I wanted to
I don't want to make the same mistake again, please.
Oh, well, I wanted to bring up, because Steve wants atheism to be a proposition, and not about a psychological state anyway. And he wants it to be there are no gods. The reason why he wants it to be that way is because, as he puts it, in philosophy, in the literature, this is the normative way in which it's used. I want to point out the only time, while it is most of the time, because philosophical papers, almost every philosophical paper is there to make an argument, right? But the only time it's used like that is when they're making an argument. And that's because when you make an argument, you're making propositions you're trying to claim are true, right? Or false, depending on what side of the argument you're on.
They're specifying the term. They're clarifying what they mean within the document because it's not the common usage. So they want to make sure the reader understands what they mean.
Yeah, and because in philosophical books and other papers, atheism is a term that's defined in such a way that it actually describes people. It's actually a category of people, because the statement, right, the claim, gods do not exist, right, does not describe people. People are not that statement. So no one is literally that atheism. That's just an atheistic proposition that atheists can make. And what I want to point out here is, if you're a hard atheist, someone that says, I believe that no gods exist, that does not necessitate you to then go ahead and make the claim there are no gods. you can have a standard of evidence that you hold on a high pedestal, right? So let's say you're an atheist and you really believe in the standards of science. You think that's what you need to do in order to really know something. But between that and where absolutely knowing nothing, you could become convinced, right? You could have circumstantial evidence. You could have arguments you find convincing and reasons why you believe there are no gods, and still not claim the proposition Steve wants to be atheism. Now, if that's not absurd, it's absurd to define atheism in such a way that a hard atheist does not hold to atheism. Right?
Yes.
So as long as you're not trying to make an argument, atheism should never be defined as a proposition like that.
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, and I would also say, even as a hard atheist, if you under particular definitions of gods, then I would consider myself to be agnostic to those, right? If you're going to talk about an unfalsifiable God, which has no way of being falsified, I can't falsify it because that's part of the definition. So I must be agnostic to those, right? But I personally find that particular definition of a God to be next to useless. So I discount it on the grounds of utility rather than actual logic. But yeah, go ahead.
And Simon's saying that because Simon's the type of Simon is the highest power level of atheist, right? He's the buffest level of atheism. He'll go ahead and make the claim there is no God. He just wants to preface that with there are certain versions of God that are just completely unknowable because they don't make sense and they're pointless.
They're pointless, right? So by Occam's razor, if you're going to give it a property, well, you can define God by that property. Therefore, there's no point in calling that God. That's just adding on to something which doesn't need to be there. And the second point is, if you call a coffee cup God, well, I believe a coffee cup exists. I don't find it a very useful definition of God in any sense of the word. And so I would discount it for that reason. But yeah, if you want to make a semantic argument, okay, great, you got me. I just don't find it interesting. And it certainly isn't the way it's been used for thousands of years. So yeah, if you think you're going to win a battle by using some semantic argument, great. And that's what I think you're doing, or that's what I think Steve's doing with the same thing with his agnostic argument. And he's saying that he's making a definition without a distinction, as far as I can see. So back at you, Steve. If I'm a hard atheist, then that means you are definitely a soft atheist, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. But I wouldn't call you that because I don't like you, and I don't want you to be part of the atheism crowd.
Yeah, I think me
personal. I went there.
I think me and Simon talked about this the first night we started watching this. Every argument Steve has ever had, essentially in this community, has been semantics. Every last one of them.
Yeah.
Which means all you got to do to effectively disagree with him is go, I don't define it like that. And then it's over.
Then he begins calling you an idiot. And
he's an idiot because you want to use the words from a dictionary. I don't think we went over that thing, but they complain. Yeah, there's a part in the video where they complain that people used dictionaries.
Yeah.
Welcome to reality.
Yeah, though. Yeah, but you're just using a dictionary to say that. I mean, it's crazy.
So let me ask this really quick.
Every one of those words I just used is in pretty much every English language dictionary.
Does Steve agree that words have usages?
Yeah, that's what polysemous means.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and by the way, Steve's the one that invented that word or uses that word. Yeah. So I mean, everybody that uses it thereafter must be referring to the way Steve uses it.
Yeah. Remember, every time Steve says it's polysemous, he means that you're wrong, but you're right.
I mean, it's lovely, isn't it? Delicious.
That's great.
Anyway, look, there's another half hour of this. We've already been going 2.5 hours.
It's early in the morning for most.
Quite frankly, I was just wanted to say one last thing about the WASP. And now I saw a Venn diagram of the WASP argument some time ago on a Discord server, and it was quite clear from that Discord argument that that Steve had a particular version of non-theism which he wished to profligate, which is why I asked you that question earlier, which was a bit of a trap question, and unfortunately, I sprung the trap on myself. So I just want to explain that quickly, if I can, which is to say this: if you're going to take a non-theist as being somebody who neither believes in God nor disbelieves in God, then unfortunately, the position, as far as I can see, that the atheists take in terms of the consequential position that I have, which is not only do I say gods do not exist, that consequentially means I believe no gods exist. Right? That position there is not a non-theist position because it's not distinguishable from agnostic. So it's clearly a nonsense to say that in the Venn diagram that I saw, that people who do not believe God exists are the same hold the same position that agnostics do. Right? So that's where I was getting at with that. It's just if he wishes to put a semantic collapse argument together, then it doesn't make any sense for agnostics either, because their position collapses into atheism as well. So I'm sorry, Steve. Once again, all you're saying to me is that functionally you are also a soft atheist, right? And yeah, I'm not saying that you claim that there are no gods, and of course you don't. But it's just your argument works both ways. It works equally against you as it works for you. So I think it's a bit silly. Now, I noticed on your recent page, and let me actually share that. Let me share that. I noticed on your recent page, no, I won't bother sharing actually, because it's your page. But I will just say that I noticed you've taken that distinction out now and you're calling them atheists again, which is at least something. So,
sorry, my page? One of my pages?
No, Steve's page. On Steve's page, he's saying that the not believing that gods exist is an atheist position. So
good. I'm glad he's finally entering the fold.
Progress.
Yeah, progress of a type. Anyway, we actually did go on for much more than that, but it just becomes too boring, really.
I told him a long time ago that he can't win this because he's pushing up against common use and reality and just the way things are. So there's no point continuing on with it. So I guess he's finally starting to come to terms with that, I guess. Which is good.
And again, if he wants to call himself an agnostic, then more power to you. That's absolutely fine. I don't think anybody on our side of the community is especially worried about that. The point is, right, and here I go. The point is that people who don't call themselves agnostics, that call themselves atheists, and simply believe that no God exists, don't believe that God exists, rather, are also have the same right to call themselves atheists. Right? There's nothing wrong with doing that, right? Because, like, by and large, right, most gods that you come across, I would imagine, you deny the existence of, right?
Yeah, the way I look at it is, even if people like him want to say they're not atheist, it boils down to classification. There's nothing you can do about it. You're part of a classification whether you like it or not. And people turn around and get all political correctness nonsense and say, oh, you can't label people. Well, that's what we do. How do we communicate if we can't label each other, right? We have names. We have all this different kinds of things going on. I'm a Canadian. Other people are from other countries, and there's names for that. And there's all of us, people and animals on this planet, we're all Tellurians, whether we know the term or not, or whether we like it or not. And if you look up Tellurian in dictionary, you'll find that it's a science fiction term that means inhabitants of the planet Earth. So there's nothing you can do about it. We're all Tellurians, whether we like it or not, because that's just the way the language works. So, yeah.
Again, I just wanted to get you to say this. You don't mind if he calls himself an agnostic, though, do you?
No, I don't. He can call himself whatever he wants.
Thank you very much.
I mind.
Okay, Serb minds. All right, and actually, so to be fair, Serb's probably the one that's done the most kickback to his position. So, let's just leave it like that. And again, maybe Serb, if you wouldn't mind, and if Randolph please be there, maybe we could have a hangout and just go over these arguments once again, because I thought I understood them. Clearly, I don't.
We
All right.
go over it.
Thank you very much indeed.
But
I'd
I'll
like
make
to do it live though, so I can go back and watch it again.
I want to make it very clear. It's not just that Steve calls himself an agnostic. It's that he combines that with being an asshat.
Yeah, right.
If he wasn't an asshat, he could call himself whatever he wanted.
Yeah. Okay,
He
that's
calls
fair enough.
himself the a-holy pope of agnosticism.
Yeah, there's been multiple times in like the fringes of the community where I'm sitting there just having a nice chat with someone, not trolling, right? Not arguing. We're just talking about whatever. And someone's like, yeah, but aren't you an agnostic? I'm like, well, yeah.
So for me,
And they're like, oh, you mean like Steve? I'm like, no, not like Steve. Steve is awful.
being
Like Steve.
atheist and also being agnostic, but primarily as an agnostic, and this is my main focus is the atheism demographic. That's why you don't really hear me talk about this aspect. But as part of the agnostic classification, the demographic, I feel like there isn't a pope. What's he going around calling himself a pope? I do object to that. I don't recognize him as being a pope, even though he says he's the pope of agnosticism. So it's right in his Twitter handle. It's been there. Like when he first did that, I thought, oh, that's very clever. That's hilarious. And after a couple days, he'll be done with it. But no, he's kept it there for a long time.
It's because we called him that. He's not clever.
I think
He does. I know. Him, Reds, and Chess all did the same thing, which is, I know you are, but what am I? Or they assimilate what you said and they take it. So, like, Pope of agnosticism came from an insult hurled at him, and he didn't make that up. Someone threw that at him. What are you, the Pope of like this gatekeeper? And so he wore it as a title. He's not very clever, neither is Chess. Like the McRae's, that was something Heretic said to them, but now they throw it back. See, like almost everything that he does is a mirror to somebody else's creativity. He rarely actually does anything on his own.
it turns out to be quite apt, isn't it? Because he's the leader of I don't know, and he really proves that he doesn't know time and time again.
I wanted to point out to Daryl Frost, let's be clear, Steve uses this atheist argument in order for him to use atheist as a denigration. I think maybe, because you see like how he hisses and boos at the atheists, particularly AOC and, all these organizations, like as if atheists are just inherently dishonest as an organization and they need to be better. But another thing that he does is he sucks up to theists. So, Fuzzrana, Reasons to Believe, he wants to have an open door so that way he can have sort of a conduit to the theists in a way that an atheist might not. Atheists are really bad, but I'm not. I understand you. And he gets in between as a wedge.
So there is sometimes there it's less today, at least here in Canada. I know in other countries it's not the case, but there's less of a stigma to being an atheist, but it still exists. It still persists. So the way he does talk about that, saying the whole, as we played earlier in the video that he did, that he's talking about how the whole community went down the drain. That's kind of feeding into that, and that's kind of one of the things that with Canadian atheists that we do push back against and are trying to bring an end to show people that, look, being an atheist doesn't mean you're a bad person. There's no stigma here. It doesn't make sense to say there is, because there really isn't. We have our freedoms here protected under Section 2 of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which is in the Canadian Constitution. It says that we have freedom of association, and freedom of belief, freedom of opinion, freedom of conscience, freedom of religion, all these different things, freedom of expression. So we perfectly within our rights to be an atheist or to be a theist, and or to be part of a religion, etc. So it's the kind of thing that we're trying to push back against. So I feel that he's doing a real disservice to people who listen to what he's got to say about atheism, because he's wrong. It's not a bad thing, and the community has not gone down the drain. If anything, the community continues to get larger and larger and larger as more people leave religions, and as more people feel increasingly comfortable telling people that, yeah, they don't believe in any of that stuff. And so it's things are changing. And I guess he's missing it, or he wants it to not change, perhaps, and that's why he's doing it. I don't really know. So it'd be interesting if somebody could ask him why he feels the need to try to denigrate atheists, because I do find that some of his stuff is doing that, and he does to specific people like Aaron Raw and Matt Dillahunty and myself and others. And he's been talking a bit about the ACA having problems. I think there's him, or maybe it was another person, Bearded Heretic, I think is his name, one of those two. And there's this kind of there are some people out there who are trying to make things worse and try to wipe out atheism. As I mentioned, there are people in philosophy of religion who have this idea that they want to wipe out atheism. They want to wipe out atheists. They want it gone. They want everybody to conform to some religious standard. And that's what I have a problem with, is because that's imposing on us, and it's not acceptable.
I'm in a lot of different theist and skeptic groups, and there's a theist group on Facebook where we did a poll, and I'm not like in charge of it. Say we just like there was a poll in the group, and it was, would you rather? It was really geared towards religious people. Would you rather your son or daughter come back and go, "Hey, mom, I'm a," and the choices were pagan, I'm a Muslim, I'm an atheist, and there was one other one, Hindu or something like that. And
Christian.
100%, they were like, do not come back to me and say you're an atheist. Even the Muslims in the group were like, do not come back and say you're an atheist, which is weird to me, because I started pushing back on that, and I'm like, you have an opposing God. like that's somehow better. And they're like, yeah, but a little bit of magic, a little bit of, you're getting closer. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I think actually a God proposition in opposite of your God is more serious. And we were kind of going back and forth on it. But they found that atheism was the biggest threat. And I thought that was interesting.
It really does have a stigma attached. I've had people flinch away. Well, just one woman, when I mentioned it at an outdoor gathering, and we were talking about something, and I just happened to mention I'm an atheist. Well, I'm an atheist, and she like literally flinched and pulled away from me.
It's sad that it happens. I smiled there because I remember having similar experiences myself, different scenarios, but yeah, some people knocking on the door to sell religion, even though there are two ladies that came up, and I said that, and one of them's like, oh, okay, but the other one was starting to freak out. Oh no, oh, she was like scared or something. It's just, it was really kind of it was condescending, and I think, but we are intrinsically free because we're not beholden to some idea of a deity that apparently supposedly runs the whole universe, or a group of deities that do, and as the stories go. But and I think that's what many find so frightening, is that they're so used to living with this sense of security of an all-powerful deity that's going to take care of them in some afterlife, and they try to imagine what it'd be like to not have that, and it scares them. I think many of them it scares them. I don't think all of them it does, but I think many of them it does. And so I do think there's genuine concern behind it to an extent, at the very least, but I think it's misplaced, because we're in a universe where things look like that's the case, that there aren't any deities. We certainly haven't encountered them. We certainly haven't had any interactions with them that we know of. If a deity can interact with reality, we should be able to detect it with some kind of scientific tools. And that's yet to be seen. So there's so many people who are part of these religions who try so hard to show that it's real, to try to bring up evidence. And there's some group in Israel that was doing that, and they kept reporting that they were just not finding what they were looking for. And I thought, wow, good for them being honest about it and reporting their findings, right? But it's I think it's really hard for people who are in the mindset and used to that to break out of it, and to even try to understand sometimes what it'd be like not to have that in their life, because they've just become so used to it.
And I have to go here pretty soon, so I actually, like, right after this, but I want to give a piece of advice to people.
Yeah.
If you're arguing with Steve or someone like Steve that really wants to make atheism that proposition there are no gods, don't argue with them about the definition of the word. Just make it clear that you're not atheism, you're atheist. So then they have to define what an atheist is.
That's a great idea.
So yeah, we can thank you, sir, and we can just go around and do some closing remarks about Steve's cesspool hit piece on Randolph Richardson. I think you guys did such a good job of taking his points one by one and just shredding them as usual. But any closing remarks, guys?
Well, I just want to say something about Randolph's character. Like, in my observation of Randolph, and I've always been kind of afar, and I haven't. I do apologize. I haven't talked to you very often. But kind of just in passing. But
It's okay. YouTube's a big place.
I watch a lot of people, and I watch a lot of behaviors and patterns and things like that. And the monster that he describes of you, this dishonest person, that, like, I just don't see it. And I have always seen you treat people respectfully. I don't think I've ever seen you grandstand on them or try to humiliate people. And so I appreciate that. I just don't see the character assassination that he's made on you to be true. And so that's why I think what Exile's doing here is important, because it gives people a chance to push back and tell their perspective. So I appreciate your patience while we kind of go through all this.
Thank
And
you
let
very
me just quick add to that, because what I've noticed about Randolph Richardson is he's always building people up. When he sees an atheist or somebody doing a project, he's always promoting it. He's promoting other people who are in the community instead of tearing them down like Steve McRae is constantly doing. So
I believe it's our world would be a better place if people were less competitive and more supportive of each other. I'd like to see more of that. So yeah, I'm glad that you noticed that, because I do try to promote people as much as I can. And I'll just mention that what you're doing tonight, I totally agree with Holy Spackle here, that it's wonderful that you're hosting this and getting it out there, getting a chance to respond to the video. Unirock did that the other day as well and had me on, and so
yes.
I feel like the support I'm getting from people here has just been wonderful. Thank you very, very much. And
he's an angel for doing that. He really is. Thank you, Unirock.
Yeah.
Simos, what do you think?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I could say the same things again. I think I would say in my interactions with Randolph, I think I'll just go over that quickly. He's always been scrupulously honest in order to, expand his position. Even if somebody asks loaded questions, he still is scrupulously honest to answer the questions first and then explain the position. which just shows willingness to engage, even against the most hostile opponents. And I think that's commendable, especially in our community, where it's a very divided community in terms of, there are a lot of fundamentalist atheists and there's fundamentalist theists, and it's hard to navigate the waters. And it goes to show that the positions Randolph is expounding have been well thought out, well considered, and I believe going through his page, well delivered. Even though I may disagree with some things, I don't disagree with the positions. And for me, that is very commendable indeed. And I hope that the Canadian atheist movement gets bigger and bigger, because it certainly deserves to. And I hope I have a very special bond with Canada, and I wish it was more free of bigotry and loose language than it is currently. So hopefully that'll be the way when Randolph's community blows up, which it deserves to.
Well,
So,
thank
and,
you. It
and
is.
thank you for having me on as well.
Yeah, actually,
I am so glad. Yeah.
yeah, we it is true that Canada, well, generally, the area that I'm in, Greater Vancouver area of British Columbia, is pretty good for not having much in the way of problems with racism and bigotry. It is not a non-existent problem here in Canada, and improvements are being made, but they take time. It's a slow process. It boils down to people. There are some people in the world who are really terrible people, so we're trying to, as a country, we're trying to make things better over time. So, yeah. No, thank you very much, though, for your comments. I appreciate it very much, Simos. I'm very glad to know you.
Thank you.
Superb.
Okay, I guess I can make a plea. Steve, very, very, very many years ago, me and Aaron Ra used to actually communicate on the forums, and we got along fairly well, actually. And then, he got sidetracked with being the atheist, and I got sidetracked with the rest of my life. And after he talked with you, I got a chance to speak with him again. And he didn't remember me, which is fine, because we didn't talk that much. And I said, well, I'm an agnostic. And he gave the saddest sigh verbally that I think I've ever heard anyone give. And it's all your fault. Please stop calling yourself an agnostic. You're ruining it for the rest of us.
Thank you. All right.
Oh, and Cerberus.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and Cerberus Hex, thank you for your critiques. I appreciate it. I found that your perspectives to be very sharp and right on the mark.
No, my head's blowing up.
All right, you guys, we're going to have to end it. We've been going for almost 3 hours exactly. So thank you to everyone on the panel. Thank you, especially Randolph Richardson.
Thank you.
I hope we've corrected the record a bit, or at least pushed back on the cesspool that Steve is dwelling in. And I'm going to play you guys out. Have a good
I
night.
wish he didn't call it a cesspool. It's just, it's terrible to have that kind of perspective. And like you're saying, with trying to promote and help each other, we should be kind of presenting things in a much better way. So, yeah, thank you very much for hosting this. This means a lot to me.
You are so welcome. And I hope I can do this for other people if they feel the need. Somebody will. If it's not me, someone will push back. Don't worry. Have a good night, everybody.
Rocket.
Do, 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 do.
Do 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 do.
There we go. I do not love you anymore. Shout out to the live chat. Thank you guys so much at this ungodly hour. And a special shout out to Puff Wiggly. Mwah.